Mr. Van Zant?
We're going to stand fast for just a few minutes. Y'all enjoy yourselves.
What? We have a Bible.
Thank you, Mr. Topping. Would you call him on up to the podium and lead us in the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? This is Mr. Jeffrey Topping, our Director of Maintenance, and November is the month we celebrate Veterans Day, and he is one of our veterans, and we asked him to lead in the prayer and the pledge tonight. Let's go right ahead, sir.
Let's pray. God, we do come forward tonight, Lord. We just thank you for your grace and the mercy that you provided us today. Lord, just call on you to guide this meeting tonight. Do a mighty work and a mighty wonder in the new board members. Lord, as they transition into their new jobs, just lead them, guide them, direct them. May they call on you for wisdom and understanding to do the work that you'd have them do in this county. Thank you for the superintendent. Use him in a mighty way as well. All the staff, the administration, and all it takes to support this Clay County school system. And we'll just ask you to abide by the motto, "In God we trust," that boldly stands behind each one of these board members. And we call on you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, that our salvation rests in. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Say the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'm calling the reorganization meeting of November 2014 to order. The first order of business is swearing in re-elected or newly elected board members. Leading off tonight to be sworn in and take her oath of office is Ms. Janice Karakas, School Board Member District 1, and Mr. Bickner will be doing the oath administration. We're honored tonight to have Judge Mark Barillo with us. Sir, if you'd come forward and swear in District 3 School Board Member, Ms. Betsy Condon.
My family all had other commitments tonight and no one is here. Is there someone in the audience who would like to hold the Bible for me? I would greatly appreciate it.
How about Dr. Saylor? Yeah.
I think Dr. Saylor is going to do that. The Bible's right there on the podium.
Dr. Saylor will do it.
Mr. Gilhousen, there's a Bible there on the podium for you. The next will be the swearing in of Miss Ashley Gilhousen, School Board Member, District 5.
Congratulations.
I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the state and of the state of Florida, that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state, and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of school board member of Clay County, on which I am now about to enter. So help me God. Thank you for being with us, Judge. Okay. Every year, the board reorganizes, and from this 5-member panel, they elect a chairman and a vice chairman. So, is everybody ready? Okay. I will now entertain nominations for school board chairman.
I would like to nominate Jonna McKinnon as chairman of the board.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any further nominations? Okay, I'll close nominations. Ms. McKinnon has been nominated chair. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Oh, forgot my name.
Thank you. Thank goodness.
I said, now I can keep Dr. Copeland awake down here.
I've already fixed your chair once tonight down here,
Oh.
Ms. Stutter. Do I need to help you again?
This one is in a hole.
Is that one too low? I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you're tall. It'll be okay.
Oh, we'll fix it in just a minute.
We'll take a short recess after the reorganization meeting and get ourselves squared away up here. No problem. Okay.
Almost under the...
I'll now open the floor to nominations for a school board vice chairman.
I nominate Betsy Condon as vice chairman.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further nominations? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. So, Ms. Condon, congratulations. Don't trip on the chairs. And
Ms. McKenna, I had already signed in. You might want to back it out and put your name in there. Mr. Van Zant, would you come fix my chair, please?
I got one more item, and then we'll get you worked out. Okay. Traditionally, school board meetings in Clay County, since Noah got off the ark, were Thursday nights at 7 p.m. They can continue to do that. We set that date and time every year, and the school board has within its own policy the ability to change that. So, you guys, that's for you to work out. So I'll open the floor to proposed date and time for the meetings.
I move that the regular monthly school board meetings be held on the third Thursday in the Teacher Training Center at 7 p.m.
I'll second.
Any other thoughts? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. School board meetings are established for the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. in the Teacher Training Center where we all are. And as I'm saying that, there is an item on the consent to move the December meeting to Tuesday, December 16th. So just make a mental note if you're planning on coming in December. If the board approves it, there won't be any discussion on it tonight. The Tuesday 2014 meeting, the 2014 December meeting will be Tuesday the 16th unless modified by the board. Okay, that's all the business we had to conduct in the reorganization meeting. We'll adjourn the meeting and take about a 5-minute break, get situated. I have 7:15. We'll reconvene the regular meeting at 7:20.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. I like it up as high as I can get it.
Yeah, same one.
Good.
Mr. Christensen, could you step up here for a moment?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But it's still C3. Now it's in D4. It's okay.
Okay, so he won't come up until we get to the discussion. So it's actually D. It's actually D. It is C3, but it's C3. Okay, so this one's going to come up. So we're not going to do an invocation or a pledge again? Okay, we're all... Okay.
We'll call to order.
Okay. The Clay County School Board meeting, November 18th,
2014 will come to order. Welcome, citizens of Clay County. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend tonight's school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address the board, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out a card which you will find located in the back of the room and indicate the specific item number or topic that you wish to speak about, and then you can turn those cards in promptly to Ms. Adams, sitting right here to my right. No additional cards will be accepted once the board moves to the discussion agenda. Your participation is welcome and appreciated. So before we begin, I just would like to say that I'm deeply humbled to be elected as your chairman. As with everything I do, I take this responsibility very seriously, and it's my commitment to serve in this position with the utmost professionalism. As presiding officer, I like things to run smooth and orderly. We can all agree to disagree, but we will do it in a professional tone. I think everyone here is familiar with Robert's rules. But for the benefit of our new members, I would just like to remind the board that in order to keep the meeting moving in an orderly and professional tone, there's a few things. Please wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. Please direct your comments and questions through the chair and not at each other. Please keep the debate germane and on the specific topic of issue at hand. And above all, let's have a good board meeting and keep it professional. Thank you. So with that, the first item up is the adoption of the consent agenda. But before we do, we have a green card, which is for Ken Wiley, I believe it is. Mr. Wiley? Oh, you know what? I believe this is on the same one. So this is on the discussion agenda. Excuse me, you know what? I realized that the item that you wish to speak about has been pulled to the discussion agenda, so I apologize. We'll call you up in the right order. Okay, so the first item up is adoption of the consent agenda. Items that have been pulled to discussion are items C3, C4, C5, C9, C11, C34, and C21 has been stricken, which is, I believe, the charter school contract. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I have a main motion by Ms. Karakis and a second by Mrs. Studdard. All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion carries 5-0. Okay. The next item up is recognitions and awards. Okay. Before we move on to Dr. Susan Herndon, we have a plaque for Mrs. Studdard. So Mrs. Studdard, if you'd like to come to the front of the room. Okay. All right. Presented to Carol Studdard, 22 years of dedicated and loyal service to the Clay County School Board from 1992 to 2014, and chairman for at least the third time that I have been involved. Six times total. Okay, well that's great. So for 2013 and 2014, thank you so much for your service and for your leadership on the board. Thanks. Very much appreciated.
Yes, I use. Wait, let me get rid of this. Thank you. I do want to say this. It was kind of unusual to have the same chairman 3 years in a row. Was it 3 years?
3 years.
It's been a long 3 years, and I am so delighted to be down here where I can keep Dr. Copeland awake for a change. And I wish you a lot of luck this year, and I think we're going to have a good school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, under recognition and awards, we have Dr. Susan Herndon is to present the Administrator Advocacy Award for Karen Robinson.
Good evening. This past July, the Instructional Media Department joined with my department, and during this change, we were blessed to have Karen Robinson join our team. Karen is our district media specialist and serves as the liaison between the district office and the media centers out at each of our schools. She works directly with media specialists in an effort to support them as they serve all of the students in our county. When she came on board, I honestly had no idea what Karen did in her role. But by sharing an office with her, I can honestly say that I have never seen such an intense level of support offered to a group of educators as Karen offers to the media specialists in our schools. I'm constantly having to remind Karen that it's time to go home. She never turns off from her job. All of the media specialists, and now my department as well, know that we can count on Karen for support. In fact, Karen is the sole reason the Media Center is open and serving our cadets at the Florida Youth Challenge Academy, having volunteered her personal time for several years and scheduling other volunteers to keep the Media Center open. Earlier in the year, unbeknownst to Karen, 4 media specialists nominated Karen for a very prestigious award. Kim Muskowski, over here to my right, she is a media specialist at Coppergate Elementary, I almost slipped that up. Wendy West, Jeanette DeRocco, and Helen Williams nominated Karen for the 2014-15 State Award called the Administrator Advocacy Award from the Florida Association in Media and Education. Almost always, this award is given to a school or district administrator. In very rare occasions is it awarded to someone who is not an administrator. In fact, if a year comes around and none of the nominees are considered to truly exemplify what this award is all about, they don't give it to anyone. As you can tell, to receive this award is quite an honor. I am happy to announce that Karen Robinson has been named the recipient of the 2014-2015 State Administrator Advocacy Award. This award honors one individual from the entire state who has made significant and dynamic contributions to the promotion of effective school library programs and services. It recognizes Karen's significant role in developing successful school libraries within our own district and also the role these libraries play in influencing our community. It is with great pleasure that I present the Administrator Advocacy Award for the state of Florida to Karen Robinson. At this time, I'd like for her to come and receive her award.
All right, the next item is presenters, and we do not have any tonight. The next item after that is scheduled citizens' request. We have one. Diana Larkin. There she is. Ms. Larkin, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diana Larkin, 4190 Plantation Oaks Boulevard. Okay, so where do I begin? I suppose as the king said to the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, I'm going to begin at the beginning and go on till I come to the end and then stop. If you don't know me, I am the woman that wrote a letter that started the whole Shame Suit story. It started a firestorm I could not have imagined. I wrote the letter because it was my last resort. We had approached the school, we had approached the district, and we were repeatedly shut down, and I felt I had no other options. My husband told me to drop it. My mother-in-law begged me to let it go. saying my daughter would be ridiculed by students and castigated by the adults. But it is not in my nature to allow injustice to go on with impunity, and it is not my nature to stay silent and not stand up for those with no voice. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to read the letter that I wrote. Dated September 3rd, 2014, to whom it may concern, I would like to discuss the disturbing act of public shaming in Clay County School District in Orange Park, Florida. My family recently relocated to the Jacksonville area. Specifically, we live in Orange Park in Clay County. On the third day of school, my daughter called me distraught because she had been coded, which means she had violated dress code. I was out of town, so I told her to call her grandmother to bring her some appropriate attire. She said she couldn't because the punishment for violating dress code was to wear a dress code violator's outfit, which at the high school consists of bright red sweatpants with the words dress code violation down the leg and a bright yellow neon shirt stating the same. My daughter broke out in hives and had to leave the school under threat of suspension, no less, for refusing to attend classes in that shame suit. I have several problems with this punishment. Per FERPA, the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, a student's record, including disciplinary actions, is private and cannot be released without my permission. I understand that some punishments by nature are somewhat public, as in suspension, but in this case, the actual reason for the suspension is not made public, and quite honestly, unless a student chooses to disclose the suspension, being absent from school can be due to many factors. In my daughter's instance, not only was the punishment very public, but the reason for the punishment is written all over them. I believe it is a clear violation of their rights and mine as parent of a minor, and carries no real merit in actually disciplining a child. In the anti-bullying environment we live in, I cannot believe both educators and administrators can justify the blatant bullying tactic of shame suits. On the doors of these schools are signs that say it's an anti-bullying school, and yet the people that are supposed to be teaching this principle are in fact bullying the students. Bing defines bullying as intimidation of a weaker person, the process of intimidating or mistreating someone weaker, or in a more vulnerable situation. My daughter had a physical reaction to this shaming. She could not remain on campus, and I actually had to get medication for her. I believe, though, that there are other kids that will have a more than just a physical reaction to public shaming. What happens when a humiliated kid goes home after being teased all day and kills or attempts to kill themselves? Has this never really occurred to anyone in the district? There is plenty of evidence and information out there to show that public shaming of kids is not effective and very harmful. I believe that as an adult we have a responsibility to our children to teach them effective ways to deal with real issues. Is dress code violation a problem? Certainly. It can be very time-consuming and disruptive to be constantly correcting children's behavior. Unfortunately, the only messages kids get from this is not to trust authority figures and that bullying is acceptable in certain circumstances. I want to be perfectly clear. My problem is not with the dress code itself. I am actually a proponent of school uniforms, but trust me, that does not make my kids happy. I believe that if you break the rules of the school, you should be punished regardless of your opinion of the rule itself. My problem is with public shaming of kids. The argument I get from the school is that they've been doing this for 5 years now, and once a kid breaks the rule, they won't do it again. Seriously? This is your best argument for bullying and shaming kids? This screams a lack of maturity and imagination. It screams a lack of respect. It does not lessen the disruption in school, it enhances it. It does not teach children anything but fear and intimidation. There is no real intrinsic educational value to this practice. Several people told me to drop this. They told me my daughter would suffer if I don't keep my mouth shut. I kept hearing this voice in my head with the Edmund Burke quote that states, "All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing." I was, however, concerned about my daughter, and I approached her regarding the next move. I told her the fears she might be singled out and persecuted for my action of standing up to what seems to be a well-accepted practice here. I told her I will very likely be persona non grata at her school and that she may suffer. I told her if she wanted me to, I would drop it so that she wouldn't have to worry about the consequences. I have never been prouder of my daughter than when she told me that regardless of what might happen, we needed to do the right thing. She's a brave young woman with an amazing sense of right and wrong, and I hope I can continue to be an example to her as she is one to me. My goal here is not to embarrass the Clay County School District. I had sincerely hoped that I could settle the matter with them quietly and out of the public eye. Unfortunately, the school district and their legal department believe this is an acceptable practice, and I had no choice but to fight. I will never be able to live with myself if a child harmed themselves because of the thoughtless and cruel practice of shaming was allowed to continue without my doing my best to end the practice. I'm going to be filling out a complaint with FERPA. I can only file on behalf of my daughter because she was the one made to wear the shame suit. need other parents that have had the same thing happen to their children to do the same. I'm looking for parents in Clay County, Florida, school district, but quite honestly, if this is happening anywhere, I encourage parents to call and get involved. Below is the information from the Department of Education website regarding getting a complaint form. An eligible student may obtain a complaint form by calling 202-260-3887. I'm also looking for an attorney that would be willing to represent me and the other parents in the Clay County to help us fight this unjust and dangerous practice of child shaming in public schools. This is important. It's not funny or cute. It's not even imaginative. It's just mean, pure and simple. It's also an illegal abuse of power, and it needs to be stopped. Thank you for your time and attention. And I signed it. Well, goodness gracious, did that letter get some attention? I have to say, I was surprised by the international attention the letter received, less than 72 hours of sending it to only 3 news outlets. I think it speaks volumes. I think that we should all take a minute to think about that, and why did it get so much attention? And I'll tell you what I think. I think it's because every single one of us can relate. I think we all remember that one teacher that made our life horrible, or the cruel teacher that encouraged other kids to laugh or make fun of us. The vast majority of teachers are good, honorable, amazing people. They do a thankless job under impossible circumstances. I have several teachers and administrators in my family, and I am thankful to them, and I honor what they do. Sometimes, though, we make mistakes. Sometimes we make bad decisions. Sometimes we don't look at the big picture, or we get lazy. Whatever the reason, this happened. And I'm willing to bet that there have been teachers and counselors that wanted to say something but never did. I'm willing to bet that I am not the first parent that tried to get this changed. I am certain, however, that I am the only parent that drew a line in the sand and said, no more. This policy for dress code violation is being changed, and I'm glad. I think it is a good step. It doesn't, however, truly address the issue I am here to talk to you about. I am here to say that bullying is never okay, not student to student, not teacher to student, and most certainly not administrator to student. We need to develop tools to recognize when it is happening. We need to strategize ways to help teachers have a voice when they believe something needs to be addressed without fear of retribution. We need to find a way to give students a voice that will be heard and respected. I did what I was supposed to. I went through the proper channels to address the issue, and I was shut down, and that should not happen. I believe continuing education may offer some help in addressing how we can go about recognizing and responding to bullying by teachers and administrators. We can do better. We have an opportunity to set an example to the entire nation. There is no shame in admitting when you make a mistake. What is shameful is to try to hide it or sweep it under the rug. Changing the dress code policy is a good step, but it's only a Band-Aid on cancer. It is not addressing the real issue. The real issue is that bullying is and has been an acceptable practice in this district and needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, it's not a problem unique to our district. There are districts scattered around the U.S. that have the same problem, the same cancer. We need to be the solution, not the problem. Let's show them how it's done. I have a lot of support in this issue. I've talked to Senator Rob Bradley, the Southern Poverty Law Center, mental health providers, parents, teachers, and students. And I am committed to this change. The children have a voice now, and I am not going away, not just for the kids in this county, but for the kids all across this country. I will not stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larkin. Okay, that is the last item before the discussion agenda. I will call for last call for speaker cards. Are there any other speaker cards? Okay, so we will move into our discussion agenda. The first item up is superintendent update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to let Ms. Cornegie, our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, bring us up to speed on what's going on in the instructional division, and I might have a comment or two when she gets through with what she's prepared for you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on what's happening in the instructional world. I want to talk just briefly about where we started the year and kind of where we are now moving forward. You've seen this chart before, but it's a great place to start when we think about when we started this school year and what it represents. It represents a snapshot of student performance, a particular day, a particular week out of the school year. But I want to tell you that because we've had lots of conversation about school grades here at board meetings, it is one piece of a very big puzzle when it comes to student and school and district accountability. But I wanted you to look more closely at it tonight. If you look at the column there where you see the two areas that are highlighted in yellow, what this represents is the total number of points earned in each of the categories. And the categories represent everything from proficiency, those are students scoring at a level 3 or above on the FCAT, as well as making learning gains in reading and in math. What I want you to note is that although in 2014 we remained a B, we were a B in 2013. And the reason why was totally because of a change to the accountability and the scoring system in the area of writing. And you can see that if you look over to the third column there after the letter grade. And you see that we went from 82% scoring proficient to 51%. So what happened with that? It happened in every district in the state of Florida because they raised the bar on accountability. Proficiency was a 3.0, and we were great as a district to get our kids to be able to write to a 3.0. It was a challenge when it actually went to proficiency was a 4.0, and for school grading purposes, they dropped it to a 3.5 because there was such a dramatic decrease in scores across the district, or across the state. If you look, though, at the highlighted areas in 2013, we had 504 points. So let's look at 2014, where we started the school year. We increased our points to 516. So we took a dip, but we're on our way back up. It takes 525 points to get an A. We were 9 points from an A. We were so close. The other thing that we've talked about is that drop from the 14th ranked district. If you take all of the district scores, their total number of points earned, and you rank them, we were ranked at 19 in 2014. But what's significant about this is, one, we did increase by 12 points, which is pretty significant, especially when you consider the new accountability system. But there was 4 points that separated the 14th ranked district that was sitting in our spot where we were last year and the 19th ranked, 4 points. So between the 14th and around 15, 16, very little change at all, 1 or 2 points difference. We're 11 points from the top 10. That's how close these scores were. So I say that because, we've talked about the decline in Clay County. Folks, there's no decline. We are on our way up, and great things are happening. And I'm just going to give you an update on some of the things that are happening. Also, before I leave that, I wanted to just mention that Clay County exceeded the state proficiency in every grade level and every content area in 2014. Out of the 67 school districts, we scored in the top 15 in all areas with the exception of math. And our Algebra 1 scores were increased by 8% with a passing rate of 77%. So what are we doing this year? You've seen this slide before too, so I remind you of our district initiatives. For they embody the mantra that we've adopted in Clay County, which is to innovate, engage, and empower. And these 3 initiatives support the instructional shifts that are required to help students master our new state standards. Our goal in the instructional world is to truly develop places of learning where students are able to read, write, think, and talk every day in every classroom. And writing across the content area, because that's our area of deficit, is a critical component of our district and school improvement efforts. If I could use one word to describe what we are striving to achieve at all levels, it would be collaboration. We need time for students to collaborate, to think, to talk. We need time for teachers and administrators to collaborate and work together. Every bit of research will tell you that that is the key to school and district improvement, is collaboration among all stakeholders. But we need time and places for this to occur. If we're truly going to reform our instructional programs and practices to meet the demands of our new accountability system. This year we adopted for all K-12 classrooms the framework for intentional teaching. What the framework does is it guides our work and ensures that teachers plan daily time for kids to read, write, think, and talk. To plan daily for them to collaborate and as well as work independently. What we need to accomplish is for our kids as we approach our new state assessment is to them to be able to think deeply, critically at all levels, And this will not occur without time daily for kids to talk, to validate their thinking and to support and talk about their thinking. So we have embarked on 2 major action steps this year. The first of those being our collaborative classroom model schools, and those exist in 6 of our elementary schools. The goal is to establish 6 model sites across the district where teachers, administrators, parents, anyone involved, any stakeholder can go and see effective practices in action. It also models that these sites are new resources. We have a brand new resource in reading and writing in our elementary grades, K-5, and so they can go and see these in action. So where are we with this? This is really exciting. The practices that are happening in these classrooms as a result of the coaches that are in there working alongside these teachers is really what's happened right now is classroom walls are coming down, and other teachers across the district are going in to see actions or see practices in action and being able to go back and replicate this. But we never walk away from any of these collaborative meetings at the model sites without a time for those teachers to have a debrief and have conversation about what they're seeing and what they're hearing. Again, that collaboration piece that's so important. We've even caught the attention nationally and internationally with 2 organizations, one being Cornerstone Learning and the Developmental Studies Center, who sent a video team into 2 model schools last week to film these practices in action, and they're developing a teaching series on collaborative learning using our model school sites. So we're looking forward in the coming weeks for that video to actually be produced for us, something that we'll be able to share with you. At our junior highs, we have the Literacy Design Collaborative going on, as a project along with the National Reading Project, where again we have teachers collaborating, working, planning together to implement some quality academic lessons that incorporate our new state standards. Our other major action step is the redesign of our high schools, the Academies of Clay that you all know about. Last year we had 16 career academies, and that's actually a typo. That should say 29 career academies on there. We increased to 29 this year. That's pretty significant. A lot of work went into the development of those academies, and last year we also had 1,361 industry certifications earned, one of the highest in the country. Also notice our graduation rate increased from 71% to 78% last year. So what's happening with our Academies of Clay? Our 9th graders this year selected a field of interest as they enrolled. The majority of them are participating in our small learning communities, small themed learning communities. We have academy coaches working in these schools, in our high schools, that are working alongside teachers. We also have academy team meetings where teachers, again, are collaborating and talking about students and what they can do to better meet the needs of students. So what's ahead? This is a year transition. We have new standards, we have a new assessment, we have new resources, we have a new accountability system. And if I could have one word to describe our biggest challenge, it is time. Time to do what we know we need to do, which is collaborate. Our instructional day right now does not allow for a lot of time for teachers to work together, to plan. If we're really going to change practice, we need to understand what students are being asked to know and be able to do, and that's looking at our standards, and they just don't have a lot of time to do it. So I think that that's one of the challenges that I hope you as a board will help us to find more time for teachers to be able to work together. Our work will be captured and shared the week of March 1st through 4th with our district accreditation external review visit. And you play a key role in that as board members, and I put at each of your seats a copy of Standard 2, which is the Governance and Leadership Standards, to give you an opportunity over the next several weeks to kind of use this as your homework tool, to go through and to self-assess kind of where you think you would fall in terms of your governance as a board, and then areas of improvement as we think about the coming months and prepare for March 1st through 4th. Dr. Michael Henry will be the administrator overseeing this particular standard, so he'll be getting with each of you individually to talk about your role as we prepare for that visit. So I hope that you'll be able to take a look at that in the coming weeks. I invite you to walk schools with me. Ms. Condon had an opportunity about 2 weeks ago. We spent a morning together and walked through one of our model schools, and I had a great time. I hope she did as well. always a learning opportunity for me as well, and just being able to sit down and read with a child, and it's just a great opportunity. So I'd invite you all to do that, to give me a call, and I'd be happy to host a visit with you at one of our sites. So do you have any questions about where we are and where we're going?
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes, Ms. Karakis.
It all sounds wonderful, and it's great that you brought this to give an update to all of us. I appreciate it very much. I think everybody else does. And I just, with the academies, how's everything going with that? Everybody, have you had many students wanting to change, or have they been comfortable with what they've chosen? Or is it too soon to tell?
I think, again, the academy meetings and things are new to us. We're just getting started and finding the opportunities for those teachers to work together, and that's really critical in moving forward. I don't know the numbers of kids who have requested changes. I'm not aware of any, but I'm sure there have been some.
Well, we haven't had any calls, at least I have, and everybody seems to be thrilled with it. So it all sounds like it's moving forward. Like it should.
We are definitely moving ahead.
Good. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I do have one question also. You mentioned that right now we're at 29 academies. Is that our goal, or is our goal to continue to expand?
We will have to continue to expand as we move up the grade bands.
Okay.
We figure more and more students will be coming on board, so we will have to continue to expand.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Cornegie.
Yeah, I'd just like to first thank Ms. Cornegie. That was a great presentation. Gives everybody a good update. Glad to see a full room tonight. Don't know how many people are watching online or on television, but I think the more and more people know what great things are happening inside the walls of the Clay County schools every day, the more comfortable they'll be with their kids that are already there, and the more likely they'll be to trust us with their kids when they become of school age. Secondly, with the academies, just as a point of clarification, we have academies that are attempting to reach students on whatever academic spectrum, whatever interest spectrum that they come to us on. I've always said you got to meet people where they are. So we have a carpentry academy, we have law enforcement academy, culinary arts, all the way up to aerospace engineering and certified nursing assistant, where students from Orange Park High School literally walk across the street and do clinicals in the Orange Park Medical Center. So we're trying to teach all the same subjects that we all learned in school, the basic core curriculum, but around a themed area of interest. But what we're not trying to do is put any pressure on an 8th grader or their family to decide, do I want to work in construction or fly a commercial airliner or go be a welder. We're not trying to put them into a profession or vocation at the 8th grade level, but what we're trying to do, about 75% of our academies will focus on those soft skills, how to collaborate, how to work in groups, how to talk, how to dress. I mean, if you're going to be a certified nursing assistant, that's a different kind of dress than a construction worker and different from the airline pilot or the doctor. So all those things can be skills that they transfer to whatever profession or vocation they go into. Some of those skill sets will mirror right into the 50-something% of our kids that graduate every year. We have about 2,500 students graduate. About half of them track right into a 2 or 4 year university. About half of them go directly into the workforce or the military. So we're trying to equip them for success no matter where they are. And if they go to college, who says that you have to go to college and work at a fast food restaurant? If we can instill some good job skills, those soft skills, maybe they get a little bit better job with a little bit better pay even while they're working their way through college. So we're just trying to meet families where they are. Right now, every 9th grader in Clay County in all 7 of our high schools is in an academy setting. Next year, every 10th grader will be. So this will build out 3 years from now. Every high school age student, which is about 12,000 right now in Clay County, out of our 35,000 total K-12 student population, will be in an academy setting. So it's exciting. We're kind of building the airplane as we're flying it. And I'm reminded of a book title I saw recently, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. The assessments, the demands on our kids. There's jobs. Our average students these days will have 38 jobs before they retire. The days of people like my grandfather working for the railroad for 40 years and retiring, those are largely gone by. Not many people will be able to do that. A lot of the jobs our students will do when they leave our walls after they graduate have not even been invented yet. So hang on, it's exciting. If you have questions, call your local schools, call our office, visit our website, oneclay.net, has a video on the academies and some other information on there for you. So we want to keep you informed as we go. And just as another little update from the superintendent's office, I would be remiss if I did not just restate to the people that run our schools every day and our district office staff how proud I am of everybody's actions yesterday. We had a major storm front roll through northeast Florida yesterday, round about between 2 and 3 o'clock, when we're pretty much letting out 35,000 students, 17,000 of them which ride 1 to 200 big yellow school buses. And we've done a good job out of our operations center equipping the schools with some weather radar and updates, and especially in the secondary they have little programs with lightning bugs. So we really had to depend on our leaders to be autonomous at all 41 schools yesterday, because what was affecting Keystone Heights at a particular time of the day was not what was happening in Oakleaf or Orange Park. So we put out some information. We used social media. We used the call a parent system where we can launch a call to everybody at once, and kept everybody informed. And you know, some kids were told to shelter in place, and their teachers kept them and stayed a little longer where they were. Some were moved into interior quarters depending on the winds, and all that just doesn't happen by chance. Our district staff has good policy in place for how we deal with severe weather. Our administrators, our teachers, our support staff at the schools executed their training very well yesterday, and I have not had any negative feedback or am aware of any significant incidents from yesterday. So when it counts, our people are there for our kids. And as a parent in the school system with 2 kids that were at school yesterday, I'm very appreciative. So thank you very much for an opportunity to update you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Okay, the next item up is under school board members, item D3. Authorize the superintendent of schools on behalf of the school board to contract for temporary legal services. This is an item that I brought. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Any discussion?
Yes, I think this needs to be discussed. This is to authorize the superintendent of schools on behalf of the school board to contract for temporary legal services. I really don't feel that this is a good idea. One of the few responsibilities of the school board is to hire the attorney. I feel really bad for our 2 new board members tonight, because there's several items on the agenda tonight that I wish that they would. We have a state school board conference the first week of December. I think if they had the opportunity to go and have the new school board member training and learn their roles and responsibilities and have a little bit more time to adjust to being on the school board, that it would be very helpful. I have a great concern about turning this responsibility over to the superintendent at this point. I just think that it would be better if this would be delayed until our December meeting, to give these 2 new board members an opportunity to learn what the roles and responsibilities are of a school board member.
Okay. The reason why I brought this is because I felt that Mr. Bickner, our attorney, had indicated his desire to retire effective December 31st, and I felt like one of the things that I thought would be important is that we had a part-time attorney come on board to do a couple of things first. Number one, to kind of help with that transition period, because I know that our current attorney is going to be trying to finish up some of the things that he's been working on. But also, there's going to probably be some new things coming up between that time, and so I felt that that was important. The second thing is I felt that it was important for part of what I've asked the superintendent is to have this part-time attorney sort of evaluate evaluate our needs as a district in terms of what our legal services needs are, and as well as the model of how those services are provided. So, for example, right now, we have an attorney that is hired by the board who represents both the board and the superintendent. And I'm not saying that that's a bad model. That may very well be the right model. But I also wanted to get an outside opinion on maybe there is another model that would work best for us. Maybe we get a part-time attorney to represent the board and an attorney to represent the superintendent independently. I'm not sure, but that was kind of what my idea was, is what this part-time attorney would do. He would help to evaluate those needs, and then he would provide recommendation to the superintendent, who would then bring those recommendations back to us, and then we could decide then which direction that we wanted to go. That was my...
I think you've just about confirmed what I said. I think allowing the two new board members to go to conference and talk to other school board members around the state, learn about the role of the school board and the attorney, would be very beneficial to them. It's almost like putting them in a really awkward situation to be making these kind of decisions before they've had 1 minute of training. And you know, as far as someone else coming in, I have a concern too. I don't know. I haven't had it. I've been ill for a few days, and so I hadn't had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Bickner, but I have a feeling that his retirement is to be December 31st. I just do not have any idea, and maybe if it's all right, I'd ask Mr. Bickner. I don't know how much we have hanging out there as far as lawsuits and civil rights and different things coming up. I don't know. Can you wrap it up by December the 31st? I don't want the school district. I want it to be a smooth transition, and I want to make sure that he has an opportunity to wrap things up, or at least have an opportunity to do a transition with whoever comes in. I'm just real concerned about the quickness of this, and what kind of, is it in the best interest of the school district legally? I know we've got some pretty heavy things out there. Mr. Bickner, I mean...
Madam Chair, if you could... I'm sorry. He's still calling you Madam Chair.
Hey, no, don't say that. No.
Mrs.
Madam Chair, I
Studdard,
wanted to ask Mr. Bickner if, what kind of things are hanging out there. I know we've got several mediations which are coming up, and
I think that the motion at hand is not what he has hanging out there. I think the motion at hand is to hire a temporary
attorney. To direct the superintendent to hire. I just don't think that it's the superintendent's role to hire a school board attorney.
Okay.
That's one of the few. You're giving away one of the responsibilities of a school board member. That's why I'm saying, what is the big hurry that we cannot wait until we have some more time for these board members to learn their roles?
Okay.
I'd like to
thank you.
speak, Ms. McKenna.
I'd like to let one of Ms. Gilhousen. Do you have any comments? Do you have any thoughts? If you don't, that's fine.
No.
Okay.
Don't put
Okay,
him on the
that's fine.
spot.
Mrs. Karakis.
I would agree with Mrs. Studdard, and that's a perfect example. Ms. Gilhousen is not prepared to speak on this because she probably doesn't know the role, and I don't mean that in offense to you at all, so please don't take it that way, but the statutory authority says, the only person that the board hires is the school board attorney. So we would be giving away one of our powers that we've got. We want to make sure that it's an attorney that we want to work with, and that can work with the superintendent also. But I would not be in agreement with this at all, and I agree 100% with what Mrs. Studdard said. This is a disservice to our new board members to put such heavy, intense items on this agenda, to move so quickly to undo everything that the existing board, prior board, had done over the last 2 years. I get it. I understand it. I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We want to change everything back to, the control to shifted. It's shifted. We all recognize it and understand it.
But let's look at the board and the new board members. Is it really fair to put them on the spot? I mean, probably all of this will pass, and that's fine. But let's let the new board members learn their roles and responsibility as a board member first before you ask them to give up some of their statutory authority as board members, because that's basically what you're doing here with this item and several of the other items up there. So one of the things that the board is tasked with is hiring an attorney, not the superintendent. So by asking us to approve this, to give the authority to the superintendent, is removing some of the authority that elected officials that we have according to state statute. So I'm not in agreement with this at all. But, you know, if the board decides to do that, that's the board's choice. But I think that you need to think about the new board members. Think of yourself when you were a new board member. God, I went out to Florida School Board Association, and I didn't know what I didn't know until I got there. And then you go through training, and you realize we have a responsibility to the citizens of Clay County, to the children, and every decision we make, we have to make sure that it's really, truly in the best interest of the children. And that means keeping our authority as board members, as elected officials. So I also do not agree with this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Condon?
Wow. You know, I just think back to what Mrs. Cornegie said about collaboration, and I want this board and the superintendent to have that collaboration and to work together, and we have a time frame that certainly Mr. Bickner chose for his retirement, and we celebrate that, and that's great, and for him to go off and do that, and I do recognize the things hanging out there, and I am concerned about both. I see both sides of it. I think a transition period would be really good, and my understanding is that this is very temporary, that this only goes for a few months. I guess I wonder if we could, if there's any way that we could make it a shorter term period to where we can have some transition so we don't lose that time with Mr. Bickner, but that we could also have someone who can carry us through that temporary time. And then, Mrs. McKinnon, to your point of understanding exactly what we need, because I'm not sure that I can answer that question tonight, and what we need. And I know that there's so many different types of attorneys. I know watching as a citizen the last board meeting, there were environmental concerns and property concerns brought up, and I'm sure that Mr. Bickner would obviously consult with another attorney on those kinds of things. But do we need some other kind of firm that has more attorneys that can answer those? So I really do see both sides of the issue.
Ms. McKenna, may I say something else?
Yes.
Why don't we, as the board, exercise our right to put out an RFP and the board do interviews for a temporary, instead of tasking the superintendent with it? We're the board would be hiring, the board should be hiring. Why don't we, as the board, do our job?
Well, I think
that's what we should be doing. I mean, I'd like to amend your motion to that.
I think that the idea behind this was, again, just for temporary legal services, with the intent that at some point, a month or two down the road, that then we would come back after we were given, you know, some recommendation. Then we would come back, and that's when we, as a board, would then follow those recommendations.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all.
You know what? I was just, excuse me, I didn't have the floor.
Ms. Studdard, go ahead.
I have to learn this end of it. Trying to think of some kind of way to do a smooth transition here. One thing I can remember from when Frank Scrooby was our school board chairman when I first got on the school board, and he was kind of the father of school board attorneys in the state of Florida. They would call Mr. Scrooby up to get his opinion. He knew more between those ears. He never had to look at a book. He just knew it, and he was the expert. And I was trying to think of how it worked when we hired Mr. Bickner. What was that, 13 or 14 years ago, Mr. Bickner? Was it about 13, 14 years ago? But I think and you may have to help me, Mr. Bickner, it seems like there was a period there that Mr. Scrooby was still working with us, but I don't know how we did it, but there was a period there where Mr. Scrooby worked with Mr. Bickner as a transition. Am I correct? I'm asking Mr. Bickner because I can't remember back 22 or 14 years. Wasn't there a period where you worked with Mr. Scrooby? And that way, and what I'm thinking about is school law is so specialized. We have a lot of good attorneys in the area, but school law is a very specialized, different kind of law. They're kind of like a breed unto themselves, and it does take some learning, and I know that there's a learning spell, but didn't you spend some time working with Mr. Scrooby, kind of easing out of, the mediations or any lawsuits or whatever, and easing over to you? What I was wondering is if it would... Your resignation is December 31st, but I was wondering if, in order to make it a smooth transition for the district, if maybe we could talk him into doing like a month-to-month, while we do an RFP or search for a school law attorney, someone who has some knowledge in school law. And I know they have a school attorneys association in the state of Florida, and there's a lot of resources, and they have meetings just like school board members have meetings. But I was trying to think of some kind of way to do a smooth transition so that, like the civil rights cases or the mediations or this or that they could kind of get someone brought up to speed on what's going on so that it is smooth. I'm trying to think of what is in the best interest of the district, but, I don't know if he's interested in doing something like that, but I was thinking, that way if it took a month or 2 months or 3 months until everybody was satisfied that this would work, that might be a good compromise.
Mrs. Gilhousen.
Thank you. I think that's the purpose for the interim being hired so quickly, so that we can have a smooth transition. And we're not hiring the interim permanently. That right is still reserved to the board. But I think that's what the interim... I think we're all on the same page. We all want to make sure there's a smooth transition, and I think that the interim is a good way to accomplish that.
Okay, I'll take one last comment.
If I might just
Yes,
finish.
I'm sorry.
Without costing the district extra to keep Mr. Bickner on beyond December 31st, where we're in a situation where we're paying 2 lawyers for an extended period of time.
Okay. Ms. Studdard, one more comment.
If you could find an interim who's knowledgeable on school law, that's the thing, because it is a different ballpark.
Okay.
Ms. McKinnon, one
Yes.
more thing, please. I can't stress it again strong enough that this is the role of the school board, and the school board should be hiring the attorney and not the superintendent. And I would like each of the new board members to realize that that falls under your roles and responsibilities. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Studdard and Ms. Karakis dissenting. Is that right?
This is what it's like on the other side, huh?
Okay. All right. Let me vote here. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item D4. Discuss language for a revision to School Board Policy 6GX-10-1.02F, School Board Rules Pertaining to Procedures for Revisions. This isn't really an action item. This was just something that I wanted to bring up, and just for discussion. And if I could read, I'm not sure if you guys have it printed out, right?
I do.
This was actually something that was brought up, was something that came up by Mrs. Graham, so I'd like to give Ms. Graham the credit for it. But really what it is it's really kind of a policy that would say how, when we're crafting policy as a board, how we would do that in a more collaborative way in terms of, when we have an idea, we would bring that idea to the board and we would have collaboration and discussion on it before we would launch off and have the superintendent or the staff or whatever crafting a bunch of policy. The idea is to just create a more collaborative discussion. So basically what it says here is, I'll go ahead and read this. It says the role of the school board is to give clear direction for policy revisions to the superintendent of school. The board should collectively develop clear criteria among the 5 elected board members that ensures that superintendent and staff recommendations are a part of any policy revision or new policy prior to advertisement of this policy to the public. So a process may go something like, first, a board member brings up a new idea or a rationale for policy revision. Then the board member would clearly articulate the desired outcomes of the new policy to the entire board in a public meeting. Then a consensus would be gained by a majority of the board, and then the board, by a majority consensus, would then direct the appropriate review by superintendent within a desired time frame. And then the superintendent would bring back recommendation for review, revision, and advertisement. If the school board follows this long-established practice that's currently not in policy, this process will allow for cohesiveness, open discussion, and allow all board members to have a voice before the policy is created. So I'll entertain discussion.
Okay, I guess I'll start.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Karakis.
Well, again, I'm just going to be repeating myself, but part of our role as a board member is to have the authority to place an item on the agenda without having to bring it in this manner. We have the authority to do that. And by going with this manner that you've got here, it takes away some of the statutory authority that a school board member has. If this was really the way that you would like things done, then pretty much everything else you put on this agenda, items D3, C3, C4, C11, and C34, should have all been discussed first instead of placed on to approve for advertisement, if you really felt strongly about this. But no, they're on here to approve for advertisement as you've got them here. So I don't agree with this. I think in the statute, in the Constitution, it says that we are duly elected officials, and this is part of our statutory authority to be able to act as a board member, to put an item on our agenda, to speak on behalf of our citizens and parents and students. And this, again, is, in my eyes, giving away our authorization as an elected official, individually as an elected official. And we can still work collaboratively. It goes on the agenda, there's discussion, it can come back, and then it's voted on. Whatever, it can be done. We went round and round, if you remember last year, about the policy. We spent 3 hours changing policy 1.02. We made many changes. We compromised on everything, and then it was still a 3-2 vote, right? Remember? So by changing this language, we are giving up our statutory authority, and I don't agree with it. That's just my take. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
I just want to go on the record to say that this would be better discussed after they have gone to the conference in December.
Okay.
That's all. I just want to be on the record saying that it would be of great benefit to them, the new board members, if they could go and spend a week learning a little bit more about their roles and responsibilities. But I think it's fallen on deaf ears.
Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Condon.
I didn't read it quite the same way, so I guess that could be a point of discussion. I read it as that none of us would go off with the school board attorney or district staff and create a whole new policy or policy change without having discussed that it was necessary, and that was what I was reading, that the idea was to be more collaborative. So maybe I'm missing something on there, but that I didn't read it to be that we couldn't put anything on the agenda. Now, that's on another.
But that's where the training would come in, to explain that you as a board member, as an elected official, have the right to talk to the school board attorney and ask him to draft a piece of policy. You have that right. That is your right as an elected official, as a
Ms.
school board
Karakis,
member.
would you please let Ms. Condon finish speaking?
Absolutely, I
No,
apologize.
I do respect that I have that right. I do feel like our district staff are the experts, and they're the ones who know how to run our district. Most of them have been with our district for decades. I don't mean that in any term of offense at all. So please don't take it that way.
Joyce is laughing.
But I just feel like they're the experts, and so when they come to us with policy revisions, I respect that opinion, and I might not have that same idea because I don't have those years of experience behind me. I feel like I'm more of the checks and balances to make sure that we are representing parents, teachers, students, administrators, that everyone is getting the equal representation across our district. So I guess I just read it differently.
Actually, you read it exactly right. That's exactly how it was intended. It's not intended to take away anybody's constitutional right as a board member to not be able to put anything on the agenda. That is not what the intent is. The intent is exactly that, is that as board members, when we're crafting policy that is affecting different areas within our district, I think it's important that we all come together first and discuss, is this something that's really needed? And we should get the input from the staff or from the superintendent or from those people who are going to be affected by those policies. After all, they're the ones that have to live out those policies. And so, you know, that is really what the intent is for. It's not to say that you can't go to the school board attorney and ask for advice on how a policy should be written or anything like that. That is certainly not the intent. But the intent is to be more collaborative, to engage more the staff, the superintendent in writing those policies. Are they really needed? Because a lot of times I think that we write policies in a vacuum and we don't think about the unintended consequences. And so I think what this does is it puts the idea out on the floor and gives everybody an opportunity to talk about it, and we can get input from the staff because they may have some insight into it that we don't have. And that's all it is. It's out of due respect for the people that have to live the policies every day. So that's the intent. Any other discussion? Okay, so what I'd like to do is I just want to get consensus. If you, would we get a consensus to, I think what I want to do is just give direction by board consensus to the superintendent to bring us back a policy that you know, accomplishes this. Obviously, we'll look at it, we'll amend it, we'll discuss it, we can do whatever we want with it, we can approve it or we cannot approve it. But what I'm hoping to accomplish here is to just by consensus give the superintendent the authorization to go ahead and work with the staff and what that policy might look like.
Ms. McKenna, may I speak?
Yes.
Okay. Again, kind of to echo what Mrs. Studdard said, I think this would be best postponed till the new board members have some training. To quote Ms. Adams, our hair's not on fire. What's the rush? We don't need to run so quickly. And again, the unintended consequences, because once this is put into place, it's going to take a lot of work to change it. You know, policies are very hard to change back. So I would ask that we delay this until the new board members have gone through certified board member training and are more comfortable with what they're voting on.
Okay.
I think you're asking them to vote on things tonight that they're not really prepared for. I know myself as a new board member, the first year I sat here, you know, doing my best, but I just kept learning and learning and learning, and really, you're asking an awful lot of two very new board members. I don't think it's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So my question is, if we would agree to have the district staff and superintendent bring a policy back reflecting these things, hearing us tonight talk about that we want to see that collaboration, that we don't want a policy that takes away our constitutional rights, is that that's not to say that we would necessarily then approve it. We would still have a...
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's absolutely correct.
But to your point, Ms. McKinnon, we're now asking staff, the attorney, and the superintendent to do work that we may not need them to do. So it seems like it would make more sense to postpone this until the new board members have been brought up to speed, regardless of if it's a month or 6 months or however long it takes.
Could I offer, Madam
Yes,
Chair?
Mr. Van Zant.
I would just suggest this. The holidays are upon us. We've got a lot of stuff going out. Got a lot of senior staff retiring. We're like a frog going down the road, bumping our behind, trying to stay on top, right below 3% fund balance. I mean, so I would entertain, I think when you and I talked earlier, you wanted to have some discussion. We've began some. Maybe between the January time frame, if I could just ask for each of you to look at this kind of as your homework. You got 2 pieces of homework now, if you agree with me, one, the governance model and this. And maybe by February, I'll bring you some kind of recommendation. And if each of you say, we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this, I'll come back and say, hey, you guys really don't want this, I don't have a recommendation. But I don't think this is necessary to happen tonight by any means. The other policies that you're about to get into that deal with human resources, setting agendas, the business affairs policy, are extremely restrictive on the district's functioning right now. So I am asking that you look thoughtfully at those so that we can do our jobs as efficiently as possible with the money that we don't have to do them. Thank you.
Ms. McKinnon, excuse
Yes.
me. I think Mr. Wiley is over there. Does he have a card?
He had a card for a different item,
He's
not
standing
this
there
one.
trying to get your attention.
It was for this item. Okay, okay, well, come on up. Sorry about that. It was marked C3, which was a different one. Okay, I apologize.
My name's Ken Willie, not Wiley.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, happens all the time. I live at 2020 Wells Road in Orange Park. And I specifically wanted to mention this item. And what it does is it takes the original language and it just strikes out without adding anything substantive. The original language says the superintendent shall establish the agenda for the school board meetings in consultation with the board chair. And it goes on to say that...
Excuse me, Mr. Wiley, so you are speaking about the next item.
That was the one that we were talking about.
Yeah, but that's not this item. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're just having a discussion about whether or not we should establish a policy that talks about the process of how we bring ideas to the board. This isn't a current policy. So I believe the item that you want to speak to is the next one. Okay. Okay, so I'll bring you back up right after that one. Okay. All right. I apologize. Okay. So I guess you guys are open to waiting. We can just think about it over the next couple months and okay. All right. Okay, we'll do that. Okay. Thank you. All right. Now, okay, now the next item is item C3. This was the one that was pulled from the consent agenda, and this was approved for advertising amendments to School Board Policy 6GX 10-1.02, the District School Board. And this is an item that I pulled, or that I put on the agenda. I think basically with all of the comments and feedback with respect to the policies that were changed in the last couple years, a lot of the feedback that I had been receiving is that it does create a lot of inefficiencies in the district. And so I put this on here. The idea is just to have a reset so that we can come back, as a full board and hopefully follow that process that I had just talked about. That was really the intent of having that process, so that we could all come together and really get more input from the district staff on these policies. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I don't know how to say.
Before we can have discussion, there has to be a second.
Otherwise, the motion fails for lack of a second.
I would like to make a motion to approve with a change in a sentence, and I don't know how to do that.
That will be a motion to amend, okay?
I'd like to make a motion
But
to amend.
I think we have to have a second first on the first motion.
Sorry.
So I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen. Do I have a second? Okay, there's no second, so the motion fails. Okay?
I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Okay, let me back.
So,
You can't amend a motion unless it's passed.
You have to get to the discussion.
You have to get to discussion first before you can amend an emotion. Okay, so we have to have a motion on the floor in order to amend it, okay?
But isn't it finished? We've already had the
Yes.
motion and it's failed. So
Yes,
this has
we
to
have.
maybe be brought up next month
Okay.
or the month after.
So we'll move to the next item. Thank you, Ms. Karakis. Okay, the next item is item C4. This is approve for advertising amendment to School Board Policy 6GX-10-1.03, the Superintendent of Schools. This was another item that I put on the agenda. First, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen, a second by Ms. Condon. Okay, so, discussion. I put this item on here because, obviously, a portion of this policy refers to the appointed superintendent, which we don't have, and we won't be having, at least for the next few years. So I had just strike this whole thing, and including 1.03C and 1.03D.
Can I ask?
Ms. Karakis.
Thank you. I didn't even get all of it out there. I have no problem with 103D. The appointed superintendent did not pass, and it is certainly not necessary at this point. My concern is 103C, the salary of the superintendent. And I remember when this was placed on there, the $29,000 bonus or supplement that the superintendent was receiving. And my concern is that by removing all of this language, does that enable the superintendent to direct staff to then add that $29,000 bonus back to his salary?
I don't believe so.
But you don't know, do you?
Mr.
Because I don't know either, Mr. Tennant, so
I
I'm
don't
wondering.
believe
Would
it
you like
does.
me to speak to you?
Yes, Mr. Van Zant.
This item was nothing more than a personal vendetta. I have no intention of raising my own salary, nor did I after taking office. For the first 8 months I was superintendent of schools, I made the same amount of money that the two former superintendents made. Now I make less by design. But none of us really want to sit up here, and I don't think anybody in the audience wants to sit up here and publicly discuss their salaries at all. So if in some time in the future any kind of supplement happens again, that would come from you guys. I'm not asking for one. But if it does, I don't feel like being drug up here like a whipping boy like I was last year by and being maligned by school board members. We lived with that policy since the 1850s till 2 years ago without it. Just like 1.02, I don't think we need it, but that is entirely up to you guys.
I have another comment. And I agree with you. We don't need to go round and round. All our salaries are public record. Anybody wants to look it up, look it up. You know what we make. My concern is just that this puts the language back. And I agree that this should have been removed 20 years ago, Mr. Van Zandt. It had nothing to do with you. I believe it should never have been there for any of these superintendents. You can smile and laugh because you think it's, but I don't agree with it. So that's the concern. By removing this language, does it give the authority to, whether it be you or the next superintendent or whoever, to instruct staff to give this $29,000 bonus back? And I guess the question should probably be asked to Mr. Bickner. As our attorney, I'm not sure who can answer this.
If I could, one of the notes that I had in here that I would be willing to amend is the very first paragraph where it says, "The base salary of the superintendent is set in the amount indicated pursuant to Florida Statute 1001.47. However, the school board may, by majority vote, approve a supplement amount hereinafter in addition to and in excess," and then end it right there. The part that I really would like to see taken out is all of the stuff after that. So that's really, I'm good with that. I think that that way we accomplish what you're asking for. The superintendent doesn't have the ability to go raise his own salary without it coming before the board. But the part that I really struggled with is that it had to come annually, you know, and that, I think that assumes that the superintendent's going to get a raise annually, you know. So that's really what that's really what I would like to see. So, you know, I would be willing to amend what you see here to leave that first paragraph in, to put that protection in that you're talking about, but yet take the rest of the stuff out.
Well, may I speak?
Yes.
I agree with that. I think that's good to leave that, but and I think the rest of that can all go. But I do think that it should be an annual review, just to approve the same amount or increase, whatever. I think the annual probably needs to be there. The rest of the language, probably not. But I think if that paragraph and add that it comes before the board annually for review.
May I speak?
Ms. Studdard.
I don't even really see why, if the base salary of the superintendent is set in an amount indicated pursuant to Florida statutes 1001.47, his salary is set, the school board member's salary is set. I mean, I was trying to remember, does our salary, we don't even have to approve our own salary anymore. I don't see any point. I mean, this is a state.
Right,
But the first paragraph is strictly addressing a supplement amount hereinafter, a salary supplement. That's what it was addressing. So if the school board could, by majority vote.
And in fact, if you just said the first sentence, the base salary is set, blah, 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 our Florida state statutes address a school board being able to give a supplemental amount. I think it's in the Florida statutes.
It does.
Let me check to make sure. Mr. Bickner, isn't that in statutes on how you can?
Yes, Mr. Bickner, go ahead.
I believe it addresses how you can give a supplement.
It's said in 1001.47 what his base salary is. It also allows for certain supplements which are allowed by statute.
Right.
I agree with Ms. McKinnon that if you just stopped after the word statute in paragraph 1 and then took out in accordance with the following provisions, then in order for the salary to be increased, as it has been in the past, it would have to come to the board. And that would probably be appropriate. Whether or not it's annual or not,
Okay.
entirely up to y'all. But I understand completely what you're saying, Ms.
Right.
McKinnon, and I think that would work well.
Okay, so just for clarification, so you're agreeing that we could end it right after the word statute of the first paragraph in a court and end it right there? Is that correct?
I think you could do that, and then it would be incumbent upon the board, if they wanted to increase the salary beyond the statutory requirement, it would be incumbent upon the board to take action to do that. The only question then comes is, as Ms. Carrick said, do you want to do that annually, to review that annually or not? But I think that the original question as to whether or not it could be increased unilaterally would be taken care of completely by doing what you have suggested.
Any other comments? Okay, so I would need to make a motion to amend, correct? Or I would need somebody to make a motion to amend.
I'll move to amend.
May I point something out?
Yes, yes.
That's not a motion to amend. What you're doing is you're asking then to approve for advertising the item with the following revisions.
Okay.
A motion to amend only comes after you already have a motion,
Okay.
so it's not an amendment.
Okay, all right. So I guess the motion would be to approve the advertisement of policy 1.03 with the first paragraph left in, ending at the word statute and removing everything else from here, all the way through item D and the entire rest of the policy.
Also move.
Did you want to add annual review?
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'm confused, but I think we've had 3 motions on the floor.
You have a motion on the floor.
We did
I
have-
apologize. So are you moving to, who is moving to amend it?
I am.
Ms.
Okay.
Gilhausen. Okay, so we have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Amend it the way that I just read it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment.
So, I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes.
So what we're saying is that, for instance, we feel like our superintendent has gone above and beyond, maybe our graduation rates have skyrocketed, or who knows what, we're giving a supplement. I kind of, in the spirit of bonuses and coming from corporate America, I'm kind of leaning toward what Ms. Carrick has said about, this not becoming just part of the salary and being earned. And that's what bonuses are. It's a target out there, at least in the world that I came from. It was a target out there. You could earn it, and it was annually. So I would be in favor of that as well. Just so that we don't become, because it's really hard to then take it away. It becomes painful, as you all experienced last year as a board, because no one likes their salary to be decreased. And so if it's truly treated to be as a bonus and not as part of the base salary, then I would think it would need some sort of review.
Okay. Ms. Gilhausen?
Should I make a motion to amend with the word annual in
Okay,
there?
do we have any other comments on that?
Y'all have managed to confuse me, and even if I
Sorry.
don't have a code. Okay, are you saying you want to review each year the salary or the
The
possible
supplement.
supplement?
The possible
I
supplement.
have a question.
Well, you can bring that up anytime as a board member.
May I speak? Ms. McKinnon is wanting to keep just the first paragraph and end it right after the word statute, and then we're asking, or I'm asking, that we add that this will be reviewed annually, and delete numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on that. So it'll just be that first paragraph up to the word statute, and add in the sentence, this will be reviewed annually.
Okay.
Is
Madam
that-
Chair,
Yes.
I have a question. If we say the school board voted to give a supplement, that supplement becomes repetitive, or are you approving it for just 1 year?
I think that's what Ms. Carrick is
Right.
bringing up. She's saying that she believes it needs to be reviewed annual. Ms. Condon is suggesting that it be treated like an annual bonus. So if the school board chooses to give the superintendent a supplement, it would be based on an annual bonus. It would get reviewed again then the following year
Okay.
and voted on. So I'm okay with that.
That's the way it needs to be.
Okay.
Because it was before, and that's where we ran into a problem in years past, is
Right.
the supplement was given,
Mhm.
and it used to come to the board every year,
Right.
and then about, 10, 12,
Mhm.
14, I don't remember the number of years, for some reason, it quit coming to the board,
Okay.
and nobody noticed. And I was sitting here, Mr. Van Zant was sitting here, and we didn't notice it. And then all of a sudden it dawned on us, hey, it says right here it's to come to the board every year, and it hadn't been coming to the board in years. And so this will take care of that. That's fine.
Okay. So we have a motion to amend, or
Did you vote on whether or not to amend it?
that's what we're going to vote on right now. So I will entertain the motion to amend. We have a motion by Ms. Gilhouse to amend, and a second by Betsy Condon. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say no.
Now you
Motion
have
to-
an amended motion. That's
Yes.
all you have.
The amended motion carries 5-0. Okay, now back to the main motion. So now the main motion then becomes
Excuse me.
the approval to advertise this policy in the amended format that we just talked about. Is that,
And that amended format is ending after the word statute, but then adding, which shall be brought to the school board annually?
yes, yes.
Okay, you're good.
Do I have a motion? Or we already have a
You already have a motion
Okay.
because it's amended now.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The motion carries 5-0. Okay.
You're good to go.
Okay.
It'll get easier.
You're doing good.
Thank you. All right,
Don't,
okay.
don't panic.
So we got that one. Okay. All right, the next item, well, that was C4, correct? Yeah, okay, the next item on the agenda, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Mrs. McKinnon.
Yes.
I did want, since clearly I should have spent more time with my Robert's Rules book and a little less time nagging Mrs. Cornegay, I wanted to ask, and I have been, since I wanted to ask the board for consensus on something, and I'm asking it here because it says school board members, and maybe it's not the right place, but I've been nagging.
I think the right place is at the end when we get to board member comments.
Okay.
That's the right place, yeah. When we get to the very end of the meeting under school board.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Could I offer some
Yes.
clarification?
Yes.
Just in my role to advise here, I think I know what Ms. Condon wants to bring forward because she has children in school. She's got a 10th grader this year. We've had a lot of testing and assessment. There's been a lot of talk about it around the state. And I think what she's asking you to do is find good cause to add an item to the agenda to be voted on, which would be a resolution that we've all seen. It's been circulated through FSB. I'm surprised one of y'all didn't submit it to the agenda. And so what she's asking you to do, and do you have copies of that resolution with you by chance?
I do.
Is to approve a resolution that I know we've all talked about. You've seen it at FSBA. You've heard from teachers about it. I've heard from the
That really
instructional
needs-
division about it. And it really isn't a big deal. There's no financial impact. We would just like to
But-
lend our board support possibly.
That should,
And-
I mean, we can
Okay.
go ahead and do it now, but it should, things like this come under board request at the end of the meeting.
I'll be happy to wait.
No, it's okay.
We'll go ahead and do it
Go
now.
for it.
We'll go ahead and do it now, okay.
But just, we have odds and ends usually.
Do we have to vote on this? Or is this,
I was looking
Yeah.
for consensus.
The
I
board
don't
would
know
have to
if-
vote on it. First, it would have to be declared an emergency.
No, it's not true.
That's not true? Why not? It's not on the agenda.
May I speak?
yes, go ahead, Mr. Bickner.
Are you asking to declare an emergency? Because this is not an emergency.
No.
My understanding is that she's asking to amend, asking the board chair to find good cause to add an item to the board agenda under 120.525, which does not require an emergency. It simply requires good cause.
Okay.
Now, whether or not she has good cause, I'm not speaking to. I'm just saying that it doesn't require an emergency.
So what
What is
constitutes
good cause is constituted by the conscience generally of the board chair. But she has to state that good cause on the record.
Madam Chair, may I state my cause?
Yes.
Well,
Go ahead,
it's,
Ms.
the
What-
chair has to state good cause.
Okay,
The chairman has to state the good cause.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So I have been harassing Mrs. Cornegay since school started. I do have a 10th grader. I'm very concerned about the new testing counting this year. In as far as school grades go, it counts across all of our kids, and I also have a 6th grader. But I feel very strongly. I have a group of parents that are probably becoming my harem because they are constantly nagging me about when are we going to do something as a school district of Clay County, and because Duval has passed this kind of a resolution, Alachua has passed this kind of resolution, and just asking the state not to make this count so much in these kids in these years that we can't get back. And our kids are all over the map. My 6th grader is trying to learn how to type when he should be learning how to do other things, and those kinds of things. So I'm just very concerned about how this impacts our students. I'm concerned about what our teachers feel like. They must feel like they're facing a moving target daily, and that changes. Our state Department of Education keeps changing the target of what they're going to measure and when they're going to measure it, and I just would feel more comfortable, and I think if more school districts ask the state to look at this and not when you measure something, you really need a baseline of which to measure it against, and there's not a baseline to the test. Is my understanding. My sixth grader and I have gone online trying to do sample problems off of the AIR test, and I've found errors on the state website, and I'm sure teachers have as well. I've had friends who are teachers tell me that. So those are the reasons that I'm asking for consensus on this if the chair sees good cause.
Okay. Okay, I'll allow it. I'll find good cause.
I agree. I think we do have good
Okay.
cause for this.
Yes.
And it was something that I was planning on bringing up during
Okay.
board member comments, because I actually brought St. Johns County passed it last week.
Okay.
And FSBA's data on it. So I applaud you for being so proactive. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so we will put it in place right here, right now. Okay, so before we actually put a motion on the floor, we have a couple of cards that would like to speak to this resolution. And so the first person is Rena Lee Paiva.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for putting it on now. It will save my people who really do want to speak to it. But good evening. I'm Rena Lee Paiva. I'm the president of the CCEA, and I am speaking on behalf of the CCEA. The school board of Clay County, we're asking the school board of Clay County to pass a resolution to ask our state legislators to hold harmless the teachers, the administrators, and the students of Clay County regarding the new statewide assessment. I would like to remind you that the test has never been tested in the state of Florida. We have not field tested this test and have no reliable statistics regarding the validity of this test. Much of the test will be computer-based, which then begs the question on what skill is actually being tested, the knowledge of the child or the ability of the child to navigate the testing program. 25 counties in the state of Florida, school boards in the state of Florida have either passed a resolution or are considering passing a resolution of this assessment. When the state of Florida established the FCAT, they field tested it for a full year in 1997. Then in 1998, they established baseline and cut scores. It was not till 1999 that the first school grades were established. Our state has spent $228 million on a test that has never been tested. We ask that you pass a resolution calling on the governor, Florida legislators, and the Department of Education to delay the implementation of these tests until we have field tested them and have valid cut scores has been established. We further ask that no teacher or child be adversely affected by this untested test. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Paiva. Okay, I have another card. Forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. Ms. Holt? Is it Holt? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Holt. My residence is 405 Harvest Bend Drive, Fleming Island, Florida. I am a Clay County teacher. I'm a first grade teacher at Thunderbolt Elementary School. Rena Lee, as always, has done an excellent job of giving you point by point our very, very severe concerns about this test. There's only one or two that I'd like to mention that she hasn't mentioned already. Rendering harmless our third grade students and the mandatory retention, and also students graduating, that this we also be held harmless for the 2-year transition period for these particular groups of students. Since the field testing has happened out of state in Utah, and those results have come, and they are so poorly, have administered that test and the results. And because we have no baseline of our own Florida students, the money that's going to be spent to gather this data, if you know anything about reliability and validity of testing, is more or less useless. I'm not usually the person that comes to this school board to talk. I monitor very closely, and I am also a CCEA member. I've had colleagues and friends tell me not to let it get to me, to go into my classroom, close the door, do what I need to do for my students so they will be prepared. And I've just come to the point where I can't do that anymore. These things on the state level are wrong. There's no if, and, or buts about it. And because you are elected officials, and I understand the difficulty of your job, I made that trip to Tallahassee myself when we were talking about retirement and the contribution that teachers were going to have to make. And it gave me great pleasure to sit down with my congressman and my senator on the state level and watch them squirm while I was asking these very pointed questions that I deserved an answer to. I'm counting on this school board to do the right thing for students first, for teachers, and for the rest of our community, because we are becoming internationally and nationally recognized for the faulty decision-making that's happening in our state. Thank you.
Thank you. The next card we have is from Pam Race. Did I say that correctly? Okay. Ms. Race.
My name is Pam Race, and I reside at 1062 Fox Meadow Trail, Middleburg, Florida, 32068. I've been a teacher for over 30 years and a parent of 2 daughters who went through public school system in Virginia and Florida. And to be honest, I'm so grateful that neither of our daughters had the stress of the dreaded FCAT third grade test that determines whether they pass or fail. Due to this, I feel that neither of them have ever experienced test anxiety because they didn't have this burden placed on their small shoulders at such an early age. I've actually been in the classrooms. If you've actually been in the classrooms, you would see that test anxiety the teachers see every year when the FCAT is given, especially to third graders. My husband's retired military, so I've taught in 4 different states, so I've had given many different types of assessments over the years. But this is the first time that I'm required as a teacher to administer a test that hasn't been field tested in the state. I feel as a teacher that I'm expected to prepare my students for a test that will possibly set them up for failure, especially after I reviewed the results of the test given in Utah last spring. To be honest, when I saw the highest percent of proficiency for any of their tests was less than 44%, I just knew that we should be extremely worried about the new FSA. I feel it's very important that as an educator, a parent, and a citizen, that I speak up that this test should be field tested in Florida for several years before we start penalizing our students with retention and failing letters going home. It saddens me that we have elected officials sitting in Tallahassee that truly don't care about our students, so as a county, we need to take a stand to protect them. I'm asking our school board to please pass a resolution presented this evening so that this would allow our county to help field test the new FSA before our students are affected by its already known high failure rate, so that as teachers we can better prepare our students for this test in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person we have is Shanna Bear. Bohr? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shana Bohr. I live at 1600 Backwater Drive, Middleburg, Florida, 32068. I am a proud teacher in Clay County, but I'm speaking to you as a mother. I have a little boy who has anxiety, and every year at FCAT, we have to get his medication altered. He rocks in the back seat due to his anxiety, and it is heart-wrenching to see him go through it every year. And I know that his teachers try to build him up the very best that they can, but they're limited. And I am asking that we help to allow our teachers to teach the children and assess them like they do all year long, and not have it come down to one test to where we have to go and make that doctor's visit to say, it's FCAT again, and we've got to be able to make it through. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So we have no other calls on this one.
Okay. I'll bring this back to the board. So I'll entertain a motion for adoption of Resolution 2014, and I'll just read the resolution into the record.
Can I ask a question before you do
yes.
that? Was this drafted by Ms. Cornegay, and was it done in collaboration with our teachers? Did they have input to this? You did. And I'm just wondering because
Ms. Cornegay?
the last, I don't know if anybody has seen what St. Johns County passed, but their paragraph, I'd like to just kind of read it. It says, "Now be it resolved that the School Board of St. Johns County calls on the Governor of the Florida Legislature and the Florida Department of Education to hold in abeyance the full implementation of the teacher evaluation and compensation system and the issuance of school grades for the 2014-15 and 2015-16 school year in order to establish a baseline and set cut scores. Further, in order to ensure transparency and accountability, the Florida Department of Education should publish all results of the assessment at the district and school level. Further, for the Florida Legislature should ensure that there is no negative impact on third grade student promotion or student graduation during the 2-year transition period." I think that we may want to add that to our resolution because that's crucial. I think that that needs to be in there. It's not in here. And that, holding our third grades, we want to make sure that our graduation rate and our third graders are protected. So I'd like to maybe, we can approve it and ask just to have that change added to it. And,
Okay.
and I will submit the St. Johns County that I have to Ms. Cornegay, and she can redraft it if.
Okay, Ms. Cornegay, do you want to speak to this?
I think the resolution as it is, it may not state that specifically, but it does say to hold harmless any impact, which would include the mandatory retention and also the graduation requirements, everything that's been addressed. And we did go through this with CCEA, and I think it's good as is, but certainly it's your prerogative if you want to make changes. I think that this one kind of mirrors what the other districts have done, and sometimes brief is better.
So you're saying that it accomplishes all the same things that Ms. Karakis just read from the one from St. John's?
It does.
Okay.
I don't know. I think if we're going to do it, we should do it right, and we should be very specific as to what we want protected. It's fine with me if the board wants to approve this. I would be more comfortable adding that paragraph or making the change, but it's up to the board.
Okay, let me go ahead and put the motion on the floor so that we can have discussion. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution 2014, and do I read the whole thing or just the beginning?
I think
I'll just read the title of it.
I think you could spare us.
Okay, yeah, it's long. Okay, so a resolution memorializing the opinion of the School Board of Clay County, Florida, and the Superintendent of Schools in opposition of the Florida Department of Education's intent to issue school grades in a transition year for standards and assessments and connecting the results to teacher and principal evaluations.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. Karakis and a second from Ms. Stutter. Okay, any discussion?
And, really, I've been watching faces here. It sounds like nobody is in disagreement just to leave it like this. I think when the legislature, when they get this, they're going to have so many of them. I don't think they're going to read every single word. They're going to know they're going to put a check mark by Clay County did it too. So
Yep.
I don't,
Okay.
I don't think it's going to
matter
one way or the other, really, if the truth would be known about it.
Okay.
It's not worth trying to go and redo everything.
Okay, any other comments?
Do you?
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. All right. Yay. Okay, so now I forgot where we were at. Okay. The next item up is under Deputy Superintendent. This is an item that was pulled from the consent agenda. The item is C5, Proposed Allocation Changes for 2014-15. Ms. Karakis, this was your item?
Yes, I pulled this. It concerns me that we have.
Actually, I think I need to, do I need to have yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Skillhausen. Okay, Ms. Karakis.
I pulled this because I'm concerned about two items on here. One of them is an allocation shift. We are deleting Coordinator of Planning and Intergovernmental Relations position, and then we're adding an administrator on assignment at the county office. And I'm wondering, why would we delete such a crucial position in the first place? And secondly, I see no need to add an administrator on assignment at the county office. The second thing on there is the administrator on assignment for retirements, and I understand that, we're going to need to train a deputy superintendent and I believe assistant superintendent of HR. So I'm wondering on that, it has a $60,000 range, and I would like clarification on that one.
Okay.
Ms. Adams?
Mr. Van Zant, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you. I can address this. As you know, and has been stated multiple times, we're in a large transition year. We not only have the deputy superintendent and the assistant superintendent for human resources, the assistant superintendent for business affairs has been retired for 2 years, and we haven't let go of him yet. We have a hard time letting go of good people, I guess. So it is going to be a big transition year. So the numbers plugged in for his retirement will cause a little bit of a budget adjustment when we advertise, find the right person. That $60,000 might be a slight plus or minus for the rest of this budget year. We're currently until June 30th. So I can't promise you it's going to be $60,000, $50,000, $80,000. It'll depend on the person we hire at that salary level.
Is that one for Dr. Copeland?
Is that the retirement transition, $60,000? I don't have a better explanation for that for you.
I do have a question.
Is that for Mr. or is that for Dr. Copeland?
Ms. Adams?
Ms. Adams?
That's what I wanted to know, if this is for Dr. Copeland, and if so, are we advertising? I mean, is his retirement imminent? I mean, I guess he could give us a 60-day notice at any time, but...
He's gone. He just left.
Hey,
That was quick.
lock the doors. Where did he go? Good Lord. Hey, he took it personally. No, really, are we advertising for this? Is this the Dr. George Copeland position is what I'm wanting to know. It says retirement transition, and I know that you and Ms. are retiring at the end of the year. Ms. McCabe, my brain is foggy tonight, but that's the end of the school year, so I just wondered if this is for Dr. Copeland. And here he comes.
Okay. Ms. Adams.
I mean, thank you. We all know where you've been, Dr. Copeland. We were looking for you.
Here he comes. Ms. Adams.
The purpose of that is just for what it says, retirement transition. I did plug it into business affairs because we anticipate that as the wave of retirements begin, that perhaps Dr. Copeland will be at the beginning of that wave. I will follow shortly behind him, 192 days.
But who's
from
counting?
Today. Ms. McCabe will follow after that. There are others as well. So yes, I stuck it there just because, yes, that's going to be the first. When we're advertising that, are we going to do it tomorrow? No. But this prepares us, this gets us an allocation out there in the event as we prepare to get ready to hang the job out there for him.
Hang the job.
Hang the job out there. As you know, this is the beginning of our budget season. This is the very beginning. We're getting ready to send in our projections in December. So as Dr. Copeland has talked with the superintendent and with me, this is kind of a natural transition time. So yes, that's why that's there at the moment. But I want to caution all of you, this is a transition position. This is a transition next few months. So you're going to be seeing, you may be seeing more of these types of requests as we, ease or march towards retirement. I keep saying we march toward class size, we're marching toward retirement. So,
Ms. McCabe,
so
may I
yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Adams, so this retirement allocation for an administrator on assignment, my question really is this for a full year? Is this for 5 months? Is it for 6 months?
How
What
did
do
I
you-
select the 60,000?
Yeah, that's-
Okay.
how-
All right. Let's just say if we replaced a George, Dr. Copeland, for a full year, I took what it would cost for a full year and just put it in half. Cut it in half. Now, the truth of the matter is, let's pretend for a minute that there's someone right here in the district that has everything that we need that can just ease right into Dr. Copeland's position. It may be that we don't even need this. But typically we need a placeholder. This is not uncommon. I remember I had it for Mr. Berries when he left, when Mr. Warrenberg came in and Mr. Berries left. So administrator on assignment is just that. It's a holding position in the event that you need to have that transition period for the new person coming in to transition with the person exiting. And right now we anticipate that that'll be Dr. Copeland.
Do you expect that we'll have 3 at one time, that we'll need 3 positions for that? One for Dr. Copeland, one for yourself, and one for Ms. McCabe? Are you expecting that we'll have...
Well, that's what I'm hoping, that we can do this in phases. I mean, I'm definitely leaving May 29th. I mean, that's for sure.
if we let you go.
I understand Ms. Studdard's question a lot better now, and in thinking through it, this administrator on assignment is for transition and retirement, and it's parked in business affairs.
Right.
But it's just parked there.
Yeah.
Dr. Copeland might transition out between now and the springtime, and then we might use it for a replacement for Ms. McCabe from March or April till
Right.
June 30th. But that's what it's for, and you're right. I might have to come back and,
Well,
I haven't come to grips with all these people leaving me left. Maybe I should have put 3 on there that are going to be executed at some point. But that's the kind of year that we're in.
You mean that 60,000 is not a raise for me?
No, sir.
I
Tell me
came
you're getting
back.
a supplement,
I thought
too.
that's what you were going to do. I'm going to go back in there.
All right.
But Mr. Van Zant's exactly right. I would anticipate this administrator on assignment to take on different administrators as it floats on down the line as we march through retirement.
So explain to me what the other one, the county office administrator on assignment, allocation shift, $61,985. It's the same salary as our coordinator of planning and intergovernmental relations that you're deleting.
Okay. I'm going to let the superintendent again respond to that.
Well, what we've found in our current fiscal position is that we have to get really skinny in dollars and cents, and everybody has to do a little bit more. So the majority of the public relations officer job that was deleted from the allocation package has been absorbed into the intergovernmental relation job, and some of the parts of the intergovernmental relation job have now been absorbed by the assistant superintendent for support services. And what we found in a very fast-moving society with parents and teachers and staff that all need to be communicated with quickly is that we really need is a coordinator of internal and external communication. All this kind of works together. You have that job description before you, but this district has a need for an administrator from now through the end of the year to act out of the superintendent's office to coordinate communication inwardly and outwardly. And so I will be using that administrator on special assignment in my cost center if this item is approved, and transitioning some job descriptions. So like so many other job descriptions that we don't currently have, the public affairs officer job description and the intergovernmental relations job description will not cost anything. They will sit on the shelf. So this is really a wash based on our needs assessment in the district right now.
Well, it seems to me like, it's a placeholder for, somebody specific who, if you're doing the job of a public relations officer, it's a nice salary increase, which that was a $53,000 salary, and it seemed like all of those jobs for that public relations officer have been absorbed in other areas. So if we can do away with this coordinator of planning and intergovernmental relations, it doesn't seem like we should be adding an administrator on assignment. It seems like we should be proactive and just deleting that. So I'm not in agreement with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ms. Studdard?
Because I've had a cold for 3 days, I haven't had a chance to call and ask some questions that I wanted to ask, but I'm looking at the support services, the deletion of coordinator of planning. We've had a lot of changes over in that support services department. The director of maintenance was moved up to assistant superintendent. The assistant superintendent was let go. Then we got a new director of maintenance from outside. And then we had a person moved into the planning coordinator job. And that planning coordinator, who had experience and been there, it was moved over to the information services department. So I can only assume now that the coordinator of planning, who does things like the fish reports and the impact fee and that, all of that stuff, I don't really know too much. That's your department. I know that when the prior planning coordinator was there, I know he stayed really, really busy doing his job, and I think attending meetings with the county commission and different governmental organizations. It seems to me that now we've got our new assistant superintendent not only doing that job, but he and perhaps some of the people there in the office are also having to do the planning coordinator job, because we do have a new director of maintenance and a new so many new people. I'm not sure this is in the best interest of the district. However, I see the handwriting on the wall. The administrator on assignment for the county office, I am assuming that that is to hold a slot for the job description that we were approving tonight for the new coordinator of communications. I'm trying to put the pieces together here, and the only thing I have to say about that is, I mean, that's the superintendent's call as to who is named to what position, but this person now is going to be called a coordinator of communications. That's a coordinator 1 job. When that was the coordinator of public relations, it was a coordinator 2 job, and the salary was more like 53 something. Now, when that person was moved to be the planning coordinator and support services, the salary was increased to $61,900. So now what we in effect have done is we're going to have a public relations communications, or whatever you want to call it. I looked at the job description, and it's a lot less duties than was previously done by public relations at a coordinator 2, yet this one is being put in as a coordinator 1. I think there's something out of whack here, and I'm extremely concerned about losing the planning coordinator over in support services, but y'all can do what the majority wants to do.
Okay. Is that it? Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion by, was it Ms. Condon? We have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Karakis and Ms. Studdard dissenting. Okay. All right, that was C5. Okay. Next item is D5, Human Resources Special Action. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Studdard, a second by Ms. Karakis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. The next item is item C9. This was an item that was pulled from the consent agenda. This is the personnel consent agenda. This item was pulled by Ms. Karakis. Do we have cards on these? No. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Condon to approve and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Ms. Karakis.
Again, this falls right in line with the proposed allocation changes. I pulled it for the same reason, for the job description of the coordinator of communications. If we feel it's not necessary to have the coordinator of planning and intergovernmental relations, and we've created a new job description, which is, as Mrs. Studdard said, a lot less than what the public relations officer had been doing. And it's also a pay increase. I'm not in favor of adding a new position, and we have to remember every penny counts. This is a raise for a position. We're spending more money, it's less duties, and it sounds like this is really a position so that there's an assistant following around the superintendent, and we don't need that. We don't need a personal assistant for the superintendent. So I'm concerned about this position, and that's why I pulled it. I don't agree with it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Karakis and Ms. Studdard dissenting. Okay, next item is item C11. This was also pulled from the consent agenda. This is approved for advertising amendments to School Board Policy 6GX-10-2.03, position availability. This was pulled by Ms. Karakis. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and a second by Ms. Condon. Ms. Karakis.
I pulled this because, again, I'm going to repeat what Mrs. Studdard said in the very beginning of this discussion. First of all, I don't think that this should be coming before our two new board members when they have training to do and need to understand policy and procedure. I think that this is really not fair to them. The reason I pulled this was because I believe that it's crucial that our job descriptions be reviewed every 2 years, and I think when a position is vacated, they should come back. I don't know if everybody read the personnel consent agenda. I'd like to think we all did, but job locator C-3.2.06, which was the professional development assistant, did anybody notice on the bottom that this was effective January 1, 1994, and it was last revised 9/21/1995. This job description has not been looked at or updated in 19 years. 19 years. I just could not believe that. And part of the reason for addressing policy changes is so that, according to Florida statute, we're supposed to review all our policies every 2 years, including job descriptions. Job descriptions are part of our statutory authority as board members. We are responsible for writing policy. We're responsible for job descriptions. This has not been brought back to the board since 1995, 19 years. So I think that it would be foolish of this board to remove this language, which creates oversight. It makes sure that we are, according to state statute, following all the policies, and that's why I pulled it. And again, I'd like to say that I don't think that these two new board members should be put in this situation to have to vote on things of this importance until they've had training. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the school board is responsible for the job qualifications, but not for the description. Is that correct?
The qualifications at the bottom, that's correct.
But not for the job description, correct?
Mr. Bickner? Is it the
Mr. Bickner.
responsibilities and, I'm sorry, may I ask?
Yeah, Mr. Bickner.
Sorry. I believe that we are responsible for all of it.
Yeah. While Mr. Bickner's looking that up, Mr. Van Zandt, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, if you look at any of your job descriptions at the beginning, it has a title and a pay grade associated. That is what I look at as the school board's part of that. And at the bottom, you have minimum qualifications, and that's covered by statute as under school board purview. The middle of it, what that person actually does, the order of the day-to-day work of the school district and what they're going to do is a day-to-day function by the superintendent or whoever that person's assigned to in district staff. And some of them state it, some of them don't, but the rule, whether it's written or unwritten, is you do what your boss needs to do to help you accomplish that day, especially with the administrative job descriptions. As to the length of time with some of these support job descriptions, like the personnel assistant or secretary, whatever the title was, in professional development, originally I think it was batted around when this policy was changed that all job descriptions would be reviewed, and Ms. McCabe reminded the board and the attorney that to review and change any instructional or support job descriptions, that was part of collective bargaining, and I don't remember what phase of bargaining we were in. Nobody's brought that up this year. Any board member certainly could at any time, or any teacher or support staff, if they think they really can't function because of what's written on this paper. Most people will tell you they don't sit around and read their job description around here every day to figure out what to do. If they're asked to do something way outside it, they might pull their boss aside, go talk to the union and say, hey, I think I'm flying out of my envelope here, but I haven't had that yet as superintendent, so that's not, or in 14 years as a board member. So your part of this is to make sure that we have required qualifications and that the job descriptions themselves are at a band of pay that makes sense. And to back it up a step further, since we're having so much discussion, we do have some new board members, and it's a good refresher for all of us. The way that our job descriptions are banded and paid, we had a huge, I don't remember if it was something Smoke and Nixon, but a large CPA firm come in here and evaluate what we had on job descriptions, look at our pay tables, and decide, help us work through that, kind of independently evaluated what we pay people versus what we're asking them to do. So there's really a lot of oversight. I agree some of them haven't been updated in a long time. If you guys want us to update them, that becomes part of collective bargaining. We can certainly do that for the support and the instructional pieces.
Well, as part of oversight, I think, keeping the language in here, especially the part that says no employment position shall be posted, made public, or presented to the board without an appointment recommendation unless an allocation exists, which has been approved by the board. We should make sure that there's an allocation for this before it comes. And then also about when a position is vacated, it coming back to the board with the rationale and an updated version of the job description. I think that we need to continue that as a board, and I'm just in not agreement with deleting all this language. And I understand things have shifted and you want to put everything back to the way it was and shift control, and that's why this agenda with these two new board members has all of the changes that took place over the last 2 years. I understand that. I think if we really were about doing what's right for the district and in the best interest of our children, we would wait until our two new board members had training and fully understood the roles and responsibilities as an elected official. So.
Ms. Condon. Before you go, I just wanted to say something about, you had said that this says that we should have an allocation in place before we should have a job description in place before we have an allocation. I think a job description
No, it says no employment position shall be posted, made public, or presented to the board with an appointment recommendation unless an allocation exists which has been approved by the board. It's saying we must have an allocation before it's posted. And the reason that's there is because a year or so ago, there had been a position posted when no allocation existed for it.
Okay,
and it's for oversight, transparency, and accountability.
Okay, I'm clear on that. Ms. Condon.
I was wondering if the chair could ask the superintendent to ask the deputy or assistant superintendent for human resources to maybe talk about how this policy has affected their day-to-day work.
Well, if you'd like to hear from Ms. McCabe, she's very eloquent. I'm sure she'd love
Mrs.
to speak.
McCabe, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you. First of all, let me state the superintendent is completely accurate in the paragraph that is on this page, albeit struck. When we're talking about the support position that you mentioned, Ms. Karakis, that goes through CESPA committee, so the date that it was last reviewed would certainly need to go through committee in order to come before you. Every administrative position this past winter was reviewed. So I think really we're talking about administrative positions. And human resources in the past and again tonight is concerned about teachers and students, and this is a delay in service to the schools. So that's why we're in favor of a reset in this case.
Okay. Any other discussion, any other comments? Okay, I had a motion from, was it Ms. Gilhousen, and a second by Ms. Condon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Karakis and Ms. Studdard dissenting. Okay. Next item is instruction. We have nothing there. Next item is under business affairs, item D6, monthly financial report.
Okay, thank
for
you.
October 2014. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen, a second by Ms. Karakis. Dr. Copeland.
Thank you. For the two new board members, and as a quick review, each month I bring to the board a monthly financial statement. That monthly financial statement is a year-to-date for each individual fund. The basis for that fund was adopted back in September through the adoption of the final budget. Each month, I also present every budget amendment that has been not approved, but has been recommended to each individual fund, by object, and we bring that to you. That is by statute. We have to present that to you. There are several funds. Obviously, the one we talk about the most is Fund 100. That's the general fund. That fund's intent is to pay for all expenditures not paid for by other funds. Now, I know that may seem a little ridiculous, but when you think about all the other funds and their purpose, the remaining expenditures not classified to those individual funds then become the general fund. Primarily, the general fund is the largest fund. It pays for all expenditures of nearly all personnel, pretty much. It pays for the operations of schools. It pays for maintenance. It pays for transportation. It pays for quite a bit. It's a large fund. It's funded by property tax. It's funded by the FEFP. And so we have some strict requirements on the general fund. There must be a minimum of a 3% fund balance. And we're not quite there. I do have some concerns about the general fund because this time of year, about the only money we get each month is from the FEFP. There are 24 allocations. We get 2 a month. By this time, we have spent all of our property tax. Obviously, in the month of November, the property tax collector is receiving large amounts of property tax. We get a decent amount in early November. In the month of December, we get significant amount of property tax dollars. And so, but right now, we're a little strapped. We're short cash flow. And so it happens every year. It's happened every year since I've been here. That's just the nature of the funding. Mm-hmm. So we structure our expenditures, our accounts payable through Ms. Racine so we can meet those obligations and do them within a specified period of time. So that's just for your information, that nothing has bounced. We make payroll, we pay our accounts payable, and we will continue to do that. Just it takes a little bit of sometimes maneuvering here and there to meet those obligations. Within Fund 100, there is an area called employee benefits. In the area of employee benefits, we have an insurance committee. That insurance committee is made up of 9 people, representing the total district. The district, a number of years ago, hired a consultant through an RFP, and we selected Aon. Aon has done a masterful job for us, and we felt it would be time for an RFP to go out again and to see if the benefits we're receiving might be updated, might be better performed by another consultant. Ms. Racine prepared that RFP. It has gone out, and we gave significant time for them to respond with questions, whatever they may have, and we now have 3 who have submitted their proposals. I would like to request of the board a member of the board to sit on that committee as we review these 3 RFPs that have come into Ms. Racine. We will be doing this in the next couple of weeks or so, and so, Madam Chairman, if there is a member of the board that could serve on that committee. In the past, it was, yes, Ms. Tina Bullock served on that. So if you would not mind making a recommendation from a member of the committee to serve on that committee to select this consultant, I'd appreciate it.
Is that something we need to do tonight, or?
It is.
It is, okay. Do I have any volunteers? Ms. Condon will be happy to.
All right. Okay, thank you. I'll get with you and let you know when we'll be meeting to review those proposals.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Condon.
Okay. Now, that's Fund 100. Within that comes employee benefits and a significant amount of money we pay for those benefits. Second is Fund 200. That is our debt service fund. I passed out to you a schedule that relates to the debt service of a few COPs. These COPs, certificates of participation, is the funds we receive from that is according to Mr. Merrill and how he uses those funds to build a school, buy property, etc. It's my responsibility to try to get them as cheap as possible. And I have been reviewing 2 or 3 of those COPs, and it is my recommendation that as you look on that schedule that I gave you that's in pink, you'll see that we refinance Fund 298, which is the 1997 COP series that has been refinanced in 2004. You cannot refinance these generally until approximately 10 years has passed, 2004, 2014. So it is my recommendation, and based on the calculations that have been made, that on 2004, and we can do a advance refunding on the 2005A, the next one down, Fund 299. If we refund those at today's lower interest rates over the remaining years within the life, there's approximately a savings of about $1.5 million. And therefore, I recommend that the board allow me to proceed with that, and then on the 16th of December, I will bring to you the exact calculations, and then we can close on that on the 18th. I would need you, Mrs. McKinnon, and myself and the superintendent and Mr. Bickner to be involved in that. I have involved Mr. Bickner in this transaction, and so I need your approval to allow me to go forward now to complete this transaction.
I make a motion that we approve Dr. Copeland to go forward with that transaction.
Where's that on the
We've
agenda?
we've got a
One second.
motion and
Yeah.
a second on the floor.
We have a motion
already.
and a second on the floor. So my question is this
This
included?
is part
in-
of the, this
It's-
is part of the financial review.
It's already
This is part of
included in
Fund
that.
200. Mr. Bickner, are we okay to proceed with that? Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
So it's included in the motion that's on the floor already, okay?
Now,
Okay.
all right, since you allowed me to do that, also now, if we look to Fund 290, that is a refinance 2005B. That one is probably going to have to be completed sometime next April or May. And at that time, if I'm here, fine. If I'm not, better. Then I'll bring you more information about that at that time.
I do have one question. This $1.5 million savings, I mean, that's what's ringing in my ear right now. When do you estimate that we will realize that $1.5 million savings?
Over the life of the remaining life of those COPs. Now,
Okay.
again,
So it's not instantaneous?
it's not instantaneous.
Okay.
Again, this is Fund 200.
Right.
The
Okay.
funding of that comes from Mr. Merrill.
Okay.
So none of this will affect the general fund.
This isn't going to help us where...
No,
we
this
don't get
doesn't help.
Okay.
No.
Gotcha.
This doesn't help, except it does.
Different pot.
Okay.
The other funds, Fund 300, capital outlay, Fund 410 is referred to as a special revenue fund. That's our school food services. There are a few other 400 funds, special revenue. Basically, the school food services is the largest of those. Fantastic, great shape, very well run, and that's wonderful. The same thing with our other special revenue funds, the 420s, the 430s, et cetera. Mostly monies coming from the federal government flow through the state. They're in fine shape. The final fund is a fund that I'm always concerned about. It's our self-insured fund. That fund is, the thing that that fund does is to fund our property, casualty, workers' comp, and all of those related expenditures. It's a self-insured fund. We get the money to provide for that from 2 or 3 different sources, primarily from the general fund, workers' comp, and contributions by the board. In your budget, you may remember, we have money in there that we transfer over. And also from Mr. Merrill, we go get some more money from him, because since he builds the buildings, then, you know, he should pay for the insurance to insure those buildings. So we continue to go out with our hand out and appreciate what he gives us. So next month is a critical month in Fund 100. We receive the third calculation. Of course, it's always after this board meeting, normally on that Thursday, but since we're on Tuesday, I will not have that information for you in the month of December, so I'll bring that to you in January. That's critical. You know what we did to Fund 100, estimating those students, and I'm a little concerned. But anyway, that's the financial review. I'll proceed with the COP refinancing. We'll have that on the 16th of December. And if you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen, a second by Ms. Karakis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, the next item up is item C34. This was also on the consent agenda. This was pulled by Ms. Karakis. Approve for advertising amendment to School Board Policy 6GX-10-5.02A, the general policies for purchasing. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Ms. Karakis.
Again, it's, what can I say? I pulled this because when this policy was written, I felt that it's really extremely important for oversight. We had several issues going on with, I would say, wasteful spending that the board felt was really important to address. This, of course, removing all the language that was added. I have to say, I noticed that the amounts were changed also as far as telephone quotes, for the vendors and things. They were increased, and so I had some concerns about that too. And then the one thing that caught my eye, it said even before, I believe it was even before we made these changes, that any out-of-state travel that took place did have to come before the board. But now under, let me find the section again. Section E, travel, number 1, letter B. All of that is deleted where it says any out-of-state travel that took place must become before the board. And it says, in all cases where possible, out-of-state travel by board members shall be approved in advance by the board. I just had to chuckle at that. I thought, here we go, okay, real nice. Not that the board has ever gone out of state, but I do think that it creates oversight and accountability when there is out-of-state travel for it to come before the board so the board can approve it, because we are constantly looking at every penny. And that was the reason for changing this policy in the first place. So I am not in agreement with changing any of this. And again, for the record, I will state one more time that this is very important information, and I don't know if our new board members fully understand all of it. And so I don't think that they should be asked to vote on anything like this until they've had proper training. Thank you.
Ms. Condon.
I remember when this policy came before the board. I was a citizen sitting in the audience, and I remember the discussion that it was going to put a hardship on the day-to-day operations, and so and so I'd like, I guess, like the Human Resources one, if we could hear from Dr. Copeland on how this has impacted. I wouldn't think it has been brought back unless it has been a hardship, so I would like to hear that.
Yeah. Mr. Van Zandt, would you like to speak to that first?
If I could speak to it, and if you want to talk to Dr. Copeland, certainly you can. Most of this really affects the Director of Purchasing, Ms. Nancy Racine, and everything that's been spent in the last 2 years, and to my knowledge, everything spent before then has been out of your budget, the school board's budget, that by Florida statute, the superintendent of schools in every district in Florida prepares and brings to you. Nothing has ever been spent that wasn't out of approved cost centers out of the approved budget. So you have tons of oversight. You can accept or reject the budget. In 7 years, the board's voted on 2 balanced budgets. They've been the last 2 you've seen from my administration and staff. A month ago, we had an audit. I had the exit audit, very clean audit. Again, all kinds of oversight. I'm actually thankful that the 2 new board members here are well educated. You've worked out in the real world. You've managed budgets, people, drugs, and protocols in your case, the whole safety system for the MARTA in Atlanta. So I have a lot of faith in our new board members that they really can see what's going on and understand this kind of stuff from a level. Being a school board member is being a school board member. We've all been one. Some of you for a day, some of us for several years. But it's just not that hard to exercise oversight, policy, and direction. And these recommendations are coming from Ms. Racine. If Dr. Copeland has further comments on them, he's welcome to make them, but they've come out of the people that are doing the work every day. And the role of school board members per statute is, after accepting advice and counsel from the superintendent of schools, to make policies for the efficient operation of the school district, and that's what our staff is asking you to do. And I know from Ms. Racine, she's not here tonight. That's what she would
Yep,
appreciate.
she is here.
Is she? So if that's adequate enough answer and rationale, fine. If you'd like to hear from Ms. Racine or Dr. Copeland, I'll certainly ask them to come forward.
Which one? Okay. Okay. I think what
thought
she
it would be
wants...
nice to hear how it impacts day-to-day. That's why I thought it was pulled.
Okay.
Dr. Copeland, I'll let you speak, and if you'd like to introduce your staff. I haven't prepared Ms. Racine to speak tonight, so...
Thank you. When Ms. Racine received this policy to review, she and I met, and I said, now, Nancy, I would like for you to look at how things have been working for the last X months and go into this policy. If there's anything that's slowing down the process, specifically out in the schools, I said, would you please make that recommendation? If there's anything else in here, she works with this 24/7, constantly. And she's better prepared to know the effects of this policy, which is specifically with Ms. Racine. Also, we work closely with Mr. Bickner. The thing we want to do is to make sure that purchasing is fairly administered to all people within the county. Everyone has a right to the benefits of working through the school system. And so we want to make sure that when anything is purchased, it's purchased according to state guidelines. It's purchased according to giving everyone a fair chance. So I said, Nancy, you go to it, you make some recommendations because you deal with it every day. So if you would like to hear from Ms. Racine, who is definitely the expert on this, I'll be happy to allow her to come and speak. Did Nancy leave?
Okay. I think Ms. Conan's okay.
Okay.
I think that's adequate.
All right.
I would just like to say, I remember when this policy also came before the board. The thing that stood out to me the most about that night was that we had a room filled with teachers, administrators. We had all kinds of people here that were really begging this board not to pass this policy because of the inefficiencies that it would create. We heard from Dr. Copeland. I believe we heard from Nancy Racine that night, and we heard from a number of principals talking about how this would impact them at their school level. And so I'm really not surprised to see this policy back here. So,
May I say something else?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Kirkus.
What you just said was correct. There was a room full of people, but I think quite a few of them didn't understand the full policy, and what you just said was incorrect. The very last sentence of Section A, Paragraph 1, the board approval requirement of this subsection does not apply to contracts which will be paid from school internal accounts. And that was specifically written in there to safeguard all the schools and all your internal accounts. So they know that. They know that now. This was created for oversight, to control out-of-control spending that was taking place, and to it was twofold. You know, we now see more contracts on our agenda that I wasn't aware of, things that we dealt with or saw, or curriculum. There's a lot of things that come before us which probably would be very good for new board members to see and realize what goes into running a school system. But I am totally not in agreement with removing this language at all. I think this is here for a reason, and it creates oversight and transparency. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Studdard.
Well, I think one thing that I would ask, I mean, I can see the handwriting on the wall here, but one thing that we need to remember is right now, we are the 5 board members sitting here. We need to look down the road. We're not going to always have us as board members. There's not going to always be Mr. Van Zandt as superintendent. But you need to look for the good of the system as far as checks and balances on what you put into your policy. I can count.
I just want to, make one clarification.
Yes, Dr. Copeland.
Is that this purchasing policy is primarily for the budget accounts. That is the budget that's provided from the district. When we talk of internal accounts, now that's a different ballgame. Those are minimal. That affects this purchasing policy. Primarily, these are purchasing guidelines overseeing district budgets at the district level and primarily out in the schools. So I just, want to make that clarification.
We had put this in as a checks and balance. We were concerned with unnecessary expenditures, and but majority rules.
Thank you. Ms. Condon.
I just wonder, because I appreciate the checks and balances, and I don't think it was the intention of the previous board to slow down the purchasing process nor to become cumbersome. So I guess I would wonder if there could be some, if we, I think Mrs. Carrick has said earlier tonight that policies can come back before the board, and so if maybe at some point if we look at ways we can have those long-term checks and balances in place that Mrs. Stutter was talking about, and still not hinder the work of the school board. I always think that there can be better ways to do things, and sometimes if you've done something for a long time, it becomes so easy that it looks easy, and then it's really not. And I believe that Mrs. Racine probably does a fantastic job. I know she does a fantastic job at her job, but she, as we've heard tonight, will not be here forever. And so I would like to see maybe if we can work toward having something in place so we could have more checks and balances, or someone else looking at those things while still not hindering the work. I would think that would be nice to see.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhausen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Carrickus and Ms. Stutter dissenting. Okay, that is it for the discussion agenda. Woo-hoo. All right, we're going to move on to presentations from the audience. I had Travis Christensen, who was going to speak on an item, but that item basically died for lack of a second. Mr. Christensen, would you still like to address the board?
That's where we are.
That's where we are right now. Presentations from the audience.
Have to learn to quit talking. Wake up over there, Travis. That's where we are.
Travis Christensen, 2871 Affirm Court. Okay. During the elections, I noticed that several of the candidates campaigned as, one of their campaign items is being opposed to Common Core. So it's, by my count, we now have a majority of school board members who are opposed to Common Core curriculum. It's something I've also been opposed to. It's been a very uphill, very unsatisfying citizen lobbying experience. Because, in the Republican world, you go anywhere in the grassroots level, local level, talk to anyone, they're like, oh, we hate it, until you get to Tallahassee. And then you get steamrolled by people up there, and you try and say, hey, can we? No, you can't. So what I would ask is, since, you, as elected officials, are the ones that said you were opposed to Common Core, therefore, here's your chance to craft policy, ask for a recommendation, make it a legislative item, or whatever it is that you choose to do as elected officials to make your opposition actually, give it some teeth. And I realize there's quite a bit on you right now, as I've seen it's been a little bit hectic meeting. The legislative session is coming. It's coming pretty quick. And I've heard a few people up in some of the state reps up in Duval saying like, oh yeah, the Common Core, it's not what it was presented to us when, well, they, forced it on us, sold off on it. And when we're going to look at it again, I think they need to be pushed, if that's what you choose to do for whatever action you can do as a school board. And I also think that our local, if you do choose to take that sort of action, you need to address our local representatives. I don't think anyone has spoken to them about this at all. Well, there's a few exceptions. I mean, Representative Van Zandt did co-sponsor a bill that was supposed to delay Common Core implementation, which died in committee. And Senator Bradley also did some other stuff somewhat related. But basically, they need to be brought in. They might say like, well, education's not our thing. Well, it's too bad. They're the only representatives we have. If you all choose to take some sort of action and live up to your campaign promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Mr. Willie, would you like to have an opportunity to address the board now? Okay. All right. We have two other cards, which was Travis Christensen and Miss Kelly Griffiths.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Griffiths. I reside at 5240 Mallow Road, Middleburg, Florida. I come to you tonight as the president of Clay Educational Staff Professional Association, local number 7409. First and foremost, I want to remind the board members and our superintendent that this Wednesday, November 19th, is National Education Support Professional Day. Last year, Clay County School Board presented Clay Educational Staff Professional Association a proclamation declaring that every third Wednesday in November would be National Support Professional Day in Clay County. I want to personally thank all the support professionals in this county for their contribution to the success of our schools. I also want to ask that each and every administrator take the time to recognize the educational support professionals at the schools tomorrow. Last, I would like to read a quote from Reverend Jesse Jackson. Children, I should have brought my glasses up. Children need all school workers. Let me grab my glasses real fast. Children need all school workers. A person is not just a janitor, not just a custodian. Janitors can see children when teachers don't see them, and bus drivers recognize the children who are disruptive on the bus and are likely to be disorderly in the classroom. They're partners in the education. We need each other to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. That is all the speaker cards that we have. Next up is superintendent requests.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of things for you. One, great board meeting. Thank you. It's always exciting to bring in fresh leadership and talk about what our students are doing and how we're achieving in this district and how we're moving forward. I would like you to just jot 2 or 3 things down, and I can put an email out tomorrow to sum them up. But for the good of the order and whoever's watching, Florida Youth Challenge graduates on December 16th, which is a Tuesday at 2 p.m. in the Thrasher Hornets, a great program. If you've been, come again, and if you've never been, you're do yourself a favor and come attend. That is also the day that we moved our school board meeting to at 7 p.m. here. At 4 p.m., the Clay County Legislative Delegation is holding their delegation meeting in Clay County in the Clay County Administration Building at 4 p.m.
On the 16th?
On the 16th, which is December 16th, which is also that Tuesday. And then we meet here tonight at that night at 7 p.m. for our regular meeting. So I've already kind of put that back to the instructional staff. If we do have disciplinary hearings, they won't be that day. So I don't know if we'll have them for December yet, but just be prepared. We might have disciplinary hearings on a different day if we need to in December. If we could just put out an edict that everybody behave and not have any, that would be fine too. I have just the email advertising the legislative delegation you can pass down. And also with that, it was hit on a little bit, the legislature's role in what we do. I have last year's legislative priorities. Typically, we produce a talking points page. It's generally like a single sheet, but of things that this board and the district agree upon that we would like to offer as suggestions in the upcoming legislative session. Our new senators and House members for the state swore in today also. We didn't have any new people from Clay County. We still have 2 representatives, 1 senator, and I think we all know them all. So if you would give me your feedback individually, I'll bring something back at the December board meeting for your approval. That's not going to coincide unless y'all feel the burning need to have a special meeting before December 16th with the legislative delegation meeting. So I think that's about all I have. What do you need?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You are one short. Here, you can look at mine.
You can have mine. I've got it electronically.
Okay.
No, ma'am. This is just last year's. I've heard curriculum. I've heard funding. I've heard assessment and testing. So you all, if you would just email Ms. Bush or myself or both of us what you would like to talk about. If you want to come in, talk with me, I'll come to you, meet you somewhere, and discuss what you think is most important to be represented from our district.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. School board requests. I will start with Ms. Studdard.
Goody, goody. Okay. Ms. Bush asked me if I would bring this up. We had received an email about a week ago from Kendra with the Florida School Board Association, and the even number districts in the state of Florida of school board members had already selected their director and alternate director, and the alternate director was not reelected. So we were asked from District 8 to render a vote on who we would like to vote to be the alternate. Now, I will tell you, for the benefit of you new board members, the director is April Griffin this time from Alachua County, and in District 8 is Alachua, Bradford, Clay, and Union County. And to be honest with you, some of the counties don't ever send, nobody ever comes. It's just the way it is. But usually what winds up is we rotate the directorship, and the directorship right now is the Alachua County board member. And because this is my suggestion, y'all can do what you want to. What Ms. Bush wants is she's going to get back with Ms. Green in Tallahassee and kind of give her our votes, because apparently we were not good girls and send it in like we were supposed to. But what I would suggest to y'all is, because I think, Ms. Karakis, weren't you on the board one time?
I was last year.
I am really not interested at this point. I'm trying to take a break. But to be truthful with you, April Griffin will never miss a meeting. The only time an alternate would even come in to play is if the director isn't there. It's probably not going to be anything that anyone ever has to do, but I think, I would like to just say, I'll put my vote in for Ms. Karakis since she's got the experience. Y'all have got enough on your plate right now rather than jumping in on having to leave town and go to a board of directors meeting by chance. But that's, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you can put me down. She said if we'll just tell her, then she'll send it in. And, but I think because it should be somebody from Clay County, I think that would be the logical person.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, are y'all good with that?
I'll vote for Ms. Karakis as well.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Bush,
Do we need to put a check?
do you want to, she said she would just send it to them.
Okay.
I mean, this is kind of informal. This doesn't happen very often, but it's just kind of a housekeeping thing. I guess before the conference, they wanted to have a name for every slot, and they were in a panic. And one other thing that's a fun thing, a good thing. Ms. Paiva, the next time you see Matt Boyack, our Clay County Teacher of the Year, I brought this for you to give him another copy of it because he got a lot of good publicity flying with the Blue Angels. And on the bottom half of the Jack's Air News, there was his classes went out there with him to actually watch him flying, and it tells all about it. But it was a fantastic article, good television publicity. I don't remember, I hate to say this, I don't remember how much was in the other papers, but I just happened to see this one day when I was out at the base, and I thought this was splendid publicity, not only for him as the Clay County Teacher of the Year, but for the Clay County School District. And can you imagine what those students must have felt like to see their teacher? I mean, it was, and I understand there were 3 laymen who went up. One passed out, 2 passed out, and 1 got sick. And I'm not going to ask who was who, but he did not get sick. Oh, well, okay, you said it, I didn't. But if you would, I would like you to take this to him. I'll give it to you after the meeting, so I'm sure he can send it to friends and relatives and so forth. But it really tickled me I admire him for having the nerve to do it. But that was great.
Ms. Gilhousen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking forward to working together with all of you. I think that we are blessed to live in a district that has some really great potential. One subject that I would like to put forward tonight is that of Common Core. From what I could see during this past election season, both locally and nationally, it appears that we collectively have concerns about Common Core and where it may be taking our students in the future. We heard from many constituents, including both parents and teachers, about the concerns and frustrations that they're facing with the Common Core implementation and testing, and what some feel is the overreaching federalization of education in our country. Perhaps this could be an issue that we could come together around and commit to look into over the next few months. Because of how encompassing Common Core is, I would like for us to consider a formalized process for review of the Common Core initiative in Clay County and the state of Florida, with input from our stakeholders and what, if any, options or next steps we might be able to consider in the future. I do not have any preconceived ideas for moving forward, but I do think we need to have a conversation and begin developing a process for reviewing the issue. Again, I'm grateful to have this opportunity to work with all of you, and I look forward to what we're going to accomplish in our school district.
Thank you. Ms. Karakis.
Thank you. First, I'd like to congratulate our 2 new board members and welcome, and I think congratulations on winning your election, and you both did an excellent job tonight. This was not an easy meeting. We had some really interesting stuff, and you both handled it really well. It's confusing to be able to vote and open up the backup and look at everything and keep track of it. So you did a great job, and we're all here to help you. I mean, we may disagree on items, but when we leave the dais, we leave the problem up here, and we don't take it with us. And so you both did a good job. And I'd just like to say, you know, to the citizens of Clay County and the parents out there, thank you for giving me the honor to serve 4 more years. This really is what's in my heart, and I just, I consider it a true honor and a blessing, and I will do my very best. I like to think that every vote that I take is truly in the best interest of our kids, and I try to keep that in the back of my mind. Is this in the best interest of our kids? So I just want to say thank you. I'd also like to wish everybody a safe and happy Thanksgiving next week, and a safe week off. We all need the break, and I'm appreciative of this nice cold weather, so thank you.
Ms. Condon.
Well, I too would just like to say that I'm honored to serve. I've had some stumbles and fumbles tonight, but I've said through my campaign, and I think you'll hear it every time that I have conversations, that the students and teachers and administrators are really what my primary focus is. I know that our science kids are all working hard on science projects across the district, and this is often stressful for parents, myself included. Mr. Van Zant can tell you that every time I saw him in the past years when he was still a school board member, I would put a little bug in his ear that I was not a fan of science projects because they're so hard on parents. But anyway, I think that there's some exciting science experiments going on. I've seen some of that going on by visiting the schools, and the kids are excited about them, so it's always interesting, and if you get a chance to ask them about those science projects, it's well worth it to hear their ideas and their critical thinking skills and why they think their hypothesis is correct. So I think that's some exciting things going on in the next couple of months right here in our district. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Just a couple things. First of all, Ms. Gilhousen, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit on Common Core, but that's okay, because what I was going to just mention, I was going to kind of say the same thing. Now that the election is over, and I also, during the season, have heard a lot of stuff about Common Core, and I think one of the biggest things that I hear is you hear in all kinds of different things from different people. They're not real sure. You get people that are frustrated. I have received tons of emails from people talking about the stress that their kids are going through with the testing and some of the math that they're struggling with, and just a lot of frustration from parents. And so one of the things that I was just going to propose, and I'll just throw this out here for your comments, I was going to propose that we have some kind of maybe a series of, or one or two, I don't know, of town halls where on Common Core, where what we do is we're going to sort of formalize those concerns that we're hearing. And again, not that we've got any kind of an idea of what we're going to do about it at this point, but I think that it would be a good idea to maybe host a series of town halls, maybe one down at the south end of the county, maybe Ms. Condon could host that one, and maybe one up here to kind of represent Fleming Island and Orange Park, and maybe one in Middleburg as well. And, you know, it would be something that we would invite parents and teachers and, you know, in order to hear those comments and to sort of formalize those concerns. And then, you know, and then based on that, we can maybe discuss some way that we can, you know, take those concerns to our legislators and express those concerns and hopefully, you know, urge them, you know, to move in a direction that's a little bit more friendly to our county. So that was something that I was going to propose. What do you all think about an idea like that?
That's a great idea. Another thought would be to have a citizens input committee where we could each appoint whoever we think would be a good candidate for that to have some input on Common Core. Could be the focus, the standardized testing could be the focus, to get some formalized citizen input.
Yeah.
What does the superintendent think about this?
Yeah. I hadn't even asked him, but Mr. Van Zant?
I think I'm happy to have gotten through this board meeting tonight. Common Core was not on my mind when I walked in, just to be honest with you.
It wasn't so bad, now was it?
It wasn't. I did talk with Ms. Gilhousen earlier today, and I'd like to talk with her a little bit more. I'm just getting to know her, and I've heard her speak a little bit during the election process. Just in the spirit of transparency, I shared with her when I was 17 years old, Miss Wiggins, the superintendent, appointed me to the Citizens Advisory Council of the Clay County School Board, which we did not have. And just as a matter of perspective and numbers, that was 1987, and we had about 18,000 students. We're twice that now in 25, 26 years. So I would be open to doing something like that, or a parental committee. I've talked to people about Carnegie Math. I've been to Carnegie Math training, and I think it's important to define what we're actually talking about. A lot get visited upon Common Core as a curriculum when it's really a set of standards that we've implemented for math and English language arts. And then in Florida, we got scared to call it Common Core, so now it's called Florida Standards. And the only difference that I'm aware of is cursive writing was added back to it. I've sat with numerous parents. I usually drag Ms. Cornegie in on these conversations, and we try to parse through what isn't working. We've approved kids transferring out of math classes. We still, if there's a content area in social sciences or anything along that families have a problem with, and we have ways of opting students out of that. So we address day to day a lot of particular issues, but for me, I have to kind of categorize and define what we're talking about so we're all in a common language to begin with. And if it's okay with the board, I'll talk with Ms. Gilhousen maybe about some kind of parental committee. I don't know if we want to revive a Clay Citizens Advisory or some way to get input. I'm all for that. We're all doing life together. We got lots and lots of families. We have 36,000 students. We have 200,000 people in Clay County. So there's lots and lots of opinions in the wind. So I'm all for addressing it and taking this in incremental parts. And in the next month or so, I'll bring back a way to do that. But I can have individual conversations with all 5 of you if you have different bits and pieces. Ms. Condon, yes, she has bent my ear on science, many people on math. Ms. Gilhousen more as a general approach for involving families. So even within this board, I think we probably have differing concerns and items of emphasis. So again, my door's always open. My truck drives every direction, Fleming Island, Orange Park, Green Cove, not as far to get to you, but wherever you want to meet up, I'd be glad to talk with you.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
I just want to recognize the outstanding work that Ms. Cornegie has done, and that this is by no means a criticism of her or her work. I think that the teachers and the district level administrators have done everything that they can to provide our students with a great education, and like we talked about, it's a state legislative issue, and I recognize that. It's not about trying to get into the weeds of the day-to-day operations in the classroom. It's more about, I want to untie the hands of our professionals and let them teach.
Okay, great. So, so I guess with respect to the idea of maybe a town hall, or we want to just put that on the table for right now, maybe bring it up next month and talk about that. Okay, after we've all had an opportunity to talk with the superintendent. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to say, and Mr. Van Zant has a birthday coming up next week. I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. And then lastly, I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And I did forget to just say congratulations to our 2 new board members. And I'm very excited to be working with you guys and to get to know you. I don't know Ms. Condon at all, and I barely know Ashley, so looking forward to getting to know you guys and to working with you and working as a new board. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Okay. I am so hungry. I have not had any dinner.
You want me to go get a hamburger with you?
Sure.
Okay.
Is this for me?
Yeah, you can just stick that in your thing. I'll remind you of it.
Okay. I got to just go sort all this stuff anyway.
Betsy, you and Ms. McKinnon both will have a pile of stuff to sign.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we can't leave yet.
Told me that.
Yeah.
She told me to remind you and not let you go.
You
It's not that big a deal. I can bring stuff and get you. You're not that hard to get to.
Good job. And don't worry about that.